All right, now, okay, I just realized as I started the intro, there was no audio. Something.
I heard you just fine. So.
No, yeah, on the board, but
on
into
the
the computer or into the streaming thing, it was not coming through, so nobody heard anything that we just started. So I'll have to try to edit that out. But I guess we'll start back over then. Well, hello, YouTube. We are here for part 3 of Wizard and Glass. Hopefully I will edit out that first bit so you're not sitting there doing the old silent film routine. But yeah, it's hopefully a packed episode here. We got a lot that we're covering. Normal 4%, but it seems like there's a lot going on here. So let's go ahead and hit the intro and get the announcements and stuff and introductions going on the other side of it. Hopefully you can all hear it this time.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are content, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, as well as the entire Stephen King universe. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
And we're here for the third book club of Wizard and Glass. I don't know. It feels like we're still just barely starting this book, but we're already 3 deep.
Yeah.
We're chugging right through it here.
Chugging.
Yeah, just flying through it at alarming speeds. But that I don't know how long that'll last though.
Yeah, we'll see.
It just, I don't know. Feels like we're going fast now, but once we get bogged down, not that it's a bad thing, but once we're in like the 15 to 18 book club range, and
we're only this far in.
But yeah, let's go ahead and hit the intro stuff real quick. First of all, there is no spoiler warning. We have a spoiler section that we will cover anything that we have spoiler thoughts about this section, but that'll be at the very end. We will make sure you have a very clear audio warning as well as on screen if you're here watching. So if you've not finished the 7 primary books, this is actually a safe episode up until that final warning. We will keep all spoiler talk beyond that warning, so you can just stop it when you get to that warning. Then if you want to find us, you can find us on Apple Podcasting. You can stream us on Spotify or Stitcher as well, and now newly on Amazon Music and Audible. If you want to, on any of those services, if you could subscribe, rate, and review us, we'd appreciate that. Then if you want to join us for the live stream, so far we have Mark and Carol in the chat, and they are joining us live. We usually have a number of people joining us live. There's also someone here named Peter. I don't know who this person is. Ugh. I don't know why he's allowed in the chat. But yeah.
Kick him out. Kick him out. Report him.
Don't tempt me. But if you'd like to join us live for the live streams, you can do that over at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. If you can't join us live because you have something going on Sunday or Saturday afternoon, although if you're in the United States, most of the United States, you probably want to be inside and trying to stay warm anyway, because it is
stay cool, not warm.
Yeah,
everyone is warm,
sweltering out there. So hopefully, if you want to join us, you can do that. But if you are doing something when we're actually recording, you can always come back on and watch the live streams after the fact. I think I always forget to mention that on the intros. The live streams are posted, so you can watch them on there as well as listen. If you're more of a YouTube person than a podcast person, you could do that over there also at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. Over here on the YouTube side, if you would like to, if you could subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications, that helps us out. The notifications are awesome because they'll let you know if we have to change up our schedule. Subscribing helps as well. It'll give you notifications and stuff. In fact, every day after we finish recording, I always look down at my phone and it's like Dark Tower Palaver has started streaming. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I'm like a number of hours ago, but yes. Yeah, and then also the likes. The likes help feed the algorithm gods of YouTube. And then if you want to find the show notes, you can do that at darktowerpalaver.com. The show notes are we don't necessarily have show notes for the book club episodes, but for all the roundtables, it's there. Plus, darktowerpalaver.com is the hub for all things Dark Tower Palaver. You can find all of our links over there. Things like our merchandise, the questions for new listeners. If you are a new listener and you want to introduce yourself, if we see the in the books, usually when someone's new, they tend to tell their story.
Yeah.
We found those questions are a great way for a Dark Tower palaver or a Dark Tower reader to introduce themselves to this new quartet. So go find those questions over there, as well as all things. You got all of our links over there. Then if you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. With that, you get access to our Discord server where you can chat with us all week long, everywhere in between the episodes, not just once a fortnight. As well as we also have our Hangouts once a month. Those are a lot of fun. And you can find us again over there at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. There's a number of levels and stuff to all that. We actually have something coming up next week for one of our Patreon supporters. We'll have a guest host on next week, or 2 weeks from now. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then if you want to contact us, Peter can let you know the best ways to do that. Or actually, one more thing before, because next time, I also want to remind everyone, it is the top 10 Dark Tower characters that we're covering next time. So if you want to get that list and discuss it, send it on into the emails, which Peter will cover in just a second, because we will be covering that in a fortnight. Send those in. Was there anything else we were covering? I think that was it.
That was it.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, send those on in though if you want to be part of the discussion, or you could be in the chat and you could kind of share your list along live if you'd like, or if you'd like us to cover on the show more real or more like plugged in and not just in the chat. Email them over and Peter can tell you the ways to do that.
Best way to reach us, like Tad said, is through email. We have our old email, darktowerpalaver@gmail.com, which we're still checking. And by we, I mean Tad. And then our new email is show@darktowerpalaver.com. And then check out our social media. We have our Twitter. It's @DarkTowerPod. That's @DarkTowerPod. Our Facebook is facebook.com/DarkTowerPalaver. Our Instagram is DarkTowerPalaver, all one word, no spaces. And then if you want some merchandise, go check out tpublic.com/users/DarkTowerPalaver. Pick yourself up a hashtag #TadIsTerrible sticker, shirt, pillow, hoodie. I think they have notebooks, coffee mugs, travel mugs. They got everything, so...
Or you can get the classic logo that is no slander involved.
It's not as fun.
If you're a supporter of Randall Flagg, this is the right logo to go with here.
Who? Never heard of him.
He's the star of The Stand, sir. I don't
know who you're talking about.
Main character of The Stand shows up about chapter 23.
Larry? You shows up earlier than that.
Oh, look at that! You're not even picking from the top of the pile from the other side. You're picking down to the B or C tier there with Larry, huh?
I don't know about that. That would be a debate if you're trying to claim that Larry is B tier.
Oh, at least. I mean, because according to King, Nick is the lead, and then from there
was.
Too soon. All right. Let's go ahead and jump on in to this before we get too spoilery into other books here. I think that's everything. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Getting a little punchy here already, just right off the bat. So we are currently in part 1 of this book, and it's titled Riddles. We are starting here at chapter 3, and this is going to be the first one of this book that we have a weird little thing because to cover the percentages we usually try to cover to get our for our episodes, we're actually not going to cover. We're going to cover like a chapter and a half, something like that. Or, one full chapter and a half of the next chapter. So unfortunately, it doesn't always all fit with a bow. So we're going to be going through all of the rest of chapter 3, and then somewhat into chapter 4. So
chapter 4 and chapter 5. Is how it's subchapter 4, subchapter 5?
No, the actual chapters.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, subchapters, we always go through a number of those per episode.
Okay.
But this one, we're going to finish up chapter 3 and then jump into chapter 4. Chapter 3 is titled The Fair Day Goose, and we are starting at subchapter 4. And then Peter wanted to fight me over who got this first one here.
I didn't fight you. I didn't do anything. You put out the document, and I put mine. This subchapter is mine.
Yeah, I wonder why.
So we start off because at the end of last time, just a quick little recap, we're in the middle of the riddle contest. Roland's tapped out. Jake's told all the ones that he has from his book, and suddenly Eddie starts smiling. And he says, "Hey, Blaine,
After almost being comatose for
he's been
while.
Very silent,
which
is
very unique for him.
It's like if I was quiet for an extended period of time, which is... Tad can vouch. It's rare. It happens, but it's rare. But Eddie says he's got a couple for Blaine. And so subchapter 4 starts off with Blaine says, "Speak, Eddie of New York." Eddie thinks there is no time to tell the others to be on their guard. And from the look on their faces, there is no need. Eddie forgets about them and turns all of his attention to Blaine. He asks him, "What is four wheels and flies?" Blaine answers, "The town garbage wagon," and then he points out that he already asked this question and asks if Eddie is stupid or inattentive because he doesn't remember asking it. Well, actually, that it was asked. I do realize Susanna as the one that officially asked it. Eddie thinks to himself, yes, Blaine did answer it, but they all missed something. They were so focused on stopping Blaine from their brain buster, with some brain buster out of Roland's past or Jake's book, that they all missed they almost missed that the contest almost ended right there. So the first time I read this, I remember pausing for a second, being like, wait, Eddie asked that question before? And then it was like, oh, no, wait, yeah, Susanna, it clears it up in a couple paragraphs here that Susanna asked it before.
Yeah, it's the first question.
Yeah, very first question, because Susanna asks, and then Eddie, Jake, Roland, they all go in order, and all four of them ask a riddle, and then he goes away and everything like that.
And they, as well as most of us readers, missed that there was a delay.
There was.
In that first question.
Exactly.
We talked about it in a previous episode about how geniusly King wrote that, because if he had put that later on after we started to get the cadence of what was going on, we all would have noticed the delay. But since it was the first question off the bat,
well, also if I remember right, something happened as well, like the hounds or something happened where it kind of distracted them from those first four questions too.
Well, it's like whenever you learn a new game, right? You kind of learn the general pacing or just whatever it is about the game.
Yeah.
But it's like at first though, if there's if the game requires some extreme subtlety, you're probably going to miss it on that first.
Yeah, you get 15 or 16 turns in, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what happened on that first turn? You don't remember it.
Yeah, exactly. So. Indeed. And so totally missed the delay on the first question. The first time reading, only on reread, so I noticed it. Because I actually don't think I actually went back when it mentioned it here that there was that this question was asked before. If I had thumbed back in the old book and found it, I probably would have also noticed that there was a delay there. But I didn't. So, but on rereads, obviously, it's pretty
like
clear.
You pay attention then. That's one of those ones that, like, when you rewatch something, you're like, wait, that happened there? And you rewatch it, and you're like, yeah, it did. I totally missed that the first time. So this is one of those ones where King did that to us.
I guess books are the same as movies. Some of those movies where they have things in there and it makes it way more rewarding the next time you go through and watch it. It's the same thing with books here.
Like Knives Out is a big one for me that I remember the first time watching it. I'm like, oh, and then I rewatch it. I'm like, that's that part that they're talking about later.
I know that it's been a long time ago now, but Inception, I think I saw that 3 or 4 times opening weekend because it was just like, wait, what? After you realize the whole story, then you want to go through and watch it again and then try to pick up on things.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So going on, Eddie says that Blaine didn't like that question, that riddle, very much, and Blaine said he found it exceedingly stupid and insults Eddie again. Eddie smiles and shakes his finger up at the route map and says, "Sticks and stones may break my bones," and then offers a different version from his neighborhood, which we don't need to quote.
Not going to recap that?
I mean, we could.
It's a little blue.
It's a little off the cuff a little bit. Says something about you can rake me to the dog and back, but I'll still have the heart on to fuck your mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of sticks in your memory there.
Very, feels very Eddie.
Jake whispers to him to hurry up and if he could do something to do it. Eddie explains that Blaine doesn't like silly questions, and they knew it because it's in Charlie the Choo-Choo. He says it repeatedly in Charlie the Choo-Choo. "Don't ask me silly questions, I won't tell you silly lies." You got your copy right there?
Got it in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Let's see.
He says that the book with the answers is not riddle-de-dum, but it was Charlie the Choo-Choo that has all the answers. Yeah,
such a happy book here.
It does not look any way happy. Those kids are all terrified.
Nah. See, I don't know if I can go too close to the camera.
Yeah, don't get too close. It'll.
But that's a happy book. Every child should have a copy of this in their nursery.
No.
Yes, indeed.
No. My wife and daughter both hate it.
I don't know why. Just an innocent train.
No, it's not. Let's see. Eddie then thinks for a second and then gives him the riddle from Jake's essay. When is a door not a door? For the first time since Susanna asked Blaine what has four wheels and flies, there was a particular clicking sound like a man popping his tongue on the roof of his mouth. This pause was briefer, but it was still there. Blaine answers, And that says how much time is left, and asks Eddie if he would like to die with such stupid riddles in his mouth. Eddie sits bolt upright, staring at the route map, and although he was sweating, his smile widened. He tells Blaine to quit whining, and if he wants to kill them, if he wants to kill them, then he has to put up with a few riddles that aren't quite up to his standards of logic. Blaine says he can't talk to him that way. Eddie's being a little disrespectful, obviously. Eddie asks, well, what is he going to do? Kill him? He's already threatened that, and, says not to make him laugh, and since they agreed to play the game, to shut up and play it. And my first note here is a pause. So there was one thing to reference a pause before, but now we actually, now we're looking for it.
Yeah.
And we get one right off the bat from Eddie. It's like, oh, shit, there was another one.
Yeah.
So I love that Eddie's isn't giving him the same respect that the others have been. They've all been, yes, sir, oh, we don't want to piss him off. He might hurt us. And Eddie's just like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Let's go. You want to go? You already said you want to kill us, so let's do it. Let's dance, fucker.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, okay, is it my note now?
Yeah,
Sorry.
now it's up to your note.
So my note is really it makes sense what Eddie is saying here. Why be all polite and respectful? He's going to kill you anyway, so why grovel to the gadget?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Because you see that in movies sometimes, too, where, a villain, overplays her hand, where it's just like, hey, we're going to kill you anyway. And it's like, well, we're going to, then later on, it's like, well, we're going to kill you if you don't tell us this thing. It's like, wait, you said you're going to kill us anyway. So
fuck you.
Yeah, why would I tell you anything?
Yeah.
So I always love those things, too, when it's like, hey, the villain kind of paints themselves into a corner a bit, and they don't really have much leverage.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where Blaine is at right here, is that he's getting all feisty with Eddie, and Eddie's like, yeah, and what are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do. What,
Yeah.
kill me? You're already going to do that
And
anyway.
The other thing, too, is let's look at, if you wanted to look at it from, a socioeconomic thing, everyone except Eddie is from the higher class. Rich kid Jake going to a private school.
Nobility.
Susanna that's, from a rich family.
Yep.
Roland's from royalty.
Yeah.
Eddie's the only, blue-collar
Street kid.
person here. So it's, the one person that probably wouldn't have as much ingrained in him about, the, the prim and proper etiquette and whatever, probably the whole thing with Eddie is the only person he'd probably be polite to is a judge, because he knows the judge has his ass on the line. But in general, I just think that's kind of an interesting way to look at it too, where it's the other ones kind of have a blind spot where Roland starts off by being polite and even tells them, but the rest of them are going to take those cues, but Eddie's not, because Eddie's doesn't have that same he's not from the same background.
Yeah.
So
He hasn't been to the parties that the others have. Even Jake as a kid recognizes how to act at those
decorum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Decorum's a great way of putting it. Carol says, is it possible that just computers AI of today, Blaine only has access to riddles that have been written down? If Eddie's riddle was made up, then there's no way Blaine can guess it.
So, and I think we're going to talk about this as we move on a little bit here. I have a note somewhere, but I don't think it has to do with that, because I think that's the way I've always maybe interpreted it a little bit. But I think while doing research for this episode, I think I've come to a new thought on that.
Okay.
Do you want to go into it now?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I believe, because that's kind of what I thought, and we've even mentioned in previous episodes, Blaine has access to, he knows about, our world. He quizzes the deans about, prove to me you're from New York.
Yeah.
So it's we could see, and he also, there's a few different times where he's answered questions where he's something in Roland's language, but then he also would tell it in, our world's language.
An example from his world, an example from our world.
So he's proving, and we've talked about it, and how formidable he is, because it's if he has access to every riddle from every freaking every plane of existence, he's not going to be beatable. But I think what kind of struck me this time, and maybe it's even a little bit more in the text, maybe I've always just kind of missed it, but I think what it comes down to is riddles are logical. So you can figure those things out. It's easy to just think through it logically. Jokes, on the other hand, there's a certain logic to them, but it's not a pure logic, and there's the added twist of humor, which is something that a robot or a machine or an AI would never be able to understand. And what strikes in my mind with that is Star Trek: The Next Generation. Data, the whole run of that show, can't understand a lot of elements of humanity because he's an android.
You're right.
So I think what it comes down to is what we'll get to later on here, and I think why Blaine has the delay and stuff, and why we'll see later what ends up happening if Blaine and these keep coming, is I think what it comes down to is he's trying to reason through them, but like he's overtaxing his computing systems, trying to account for the humor that he's never going to be able to have. Like, you know, we can kind of see something with humor, and because we have souls and we're not freaking machines, you know, we can kind of see the humor and maybe catch on to that a little bit. But for him, he's basically trying to calculate an incalculable thing. He's trying to quantify in like scientific terms an emotion, and he's never going to be able to do that. So it basically Eddie's just basically overloading the circuit, like he's overloading like the RAM and the processor of Blaine to the point where he finally just blows a gasket, because he's, I don't know, I guess, like, because even later on it talks about like Blaine going like madness, and then King uses that phrase, but it's like, is it really madness, or is that you're trying to make a computer understand something that it's incapable of understanding? And he's trying to compute it because he wants to give the answer, but he has to work really hard at it. Whereas like when it's logic, it's just simple. It's like asking a computer, you know, 900,365 times, you know, 10,000 whatever. Like, a computer's going to give it to you instantly. It's math. Computers can do math. Computers can do facts. That's what they're built for. But when you try to get them to, I mean, we see it even with the AI stuff we're seeing in our society today. It's like when it's like you tell them to like paint a picture, but there's like some weird ass like uncanny valley, or there's just something that's wrong with it, because there's an element of reality that a computer is never going to be able to understand. All it can do is go through and process art and then try to replicate it. It can't truly create. So that's a new and somewhat our modern day reality has informed that a little bit, but I think that's really what's breaking Blaine here and why he's like delaying. And that's why even when Susanna gave it, he delayed, because it's like it wasn't just a quick logical thing. It's like there's the logic there, but there's the humor aspect, and I think that just he can't it's gonna make him like twitch a little bit. So
and so we actually get into that. Carol says in the chat, so Blaine is part Vulcan, only logic riddles allowed. So literally, like, the next part here is little Blaine warns Eddie that they are making big Blaine very angry. Eddie tells him to get it lost. Eddie asks another joke and riddle, and Blaine says, that is unworthy of, this is a quote from the book, that is unworthy of our contest, I will not answer. On the last word, Blaine's voice actually dropped into a lower register, making him sound like a 14-year-old coping with a change of voice. Roland's eyes were not just gleaming now, but blazing. What did you say, Blaine? I would understand you very well. Are you saying that you cry off? No, of course not. But then answer if you can. Answer the riddle. It's not a riddle, Blaine almost bleated. It's a joke. Something for stupid children to cackle over in the play yard. Answer now or I declare the contest over and our quartet the winner, Roland said. He spoke in the dryly confident tone of authority Eddie had first heard in the town of River Crossing. You must answer, for it is stupidity you complain of, not transgression of the rules, which we agreed upon mutually. Another of those clicking sounds, but this time it was much louder, so loud in fact that Eddie winced. Oi flattened his ears against his skull. It was followed by the longest pause yet, 3 seconds at least. Then the little moron did not fall off because he was a little more on. Blaine sounded sulky. More phonetic coincidence. To even answer such an unworthy riddle makes me feel soiled. Eddie laughed, held up his right hand, and rubbed his thumb and forefinger together. What does that signify, foolish creature? It's the world's smallest violin playing My Heart Pumps Purple Piss for You, Eddie said. Jake fell into an uncontrollable fit of laughter. So, going along with what you're talking about here, Blaine is not only insulted by it, but he even has to explain it as well. More phonetic coincidence. To even answer such an unworthy riddle makes me feel soiled. Yeah. So the fact that he even hit, like, you're talking about the logic sense of Blaine and everything. There's him explaining the logic of it.
Yeah,
because that's what he has to do.
Exactly, and he's not explaining it to like because he has to.
No.
Like, he's explaining because he's reasoning it. It's like when you have a kid that's struggling with something and they're talking it out as they're trying to reason through it. That's how I'm interpreting it. Because like even later he'll get accused of like delaying tactics. I'm not even sure if it's that or if it's like literally that you've reduced Blaine to being a child because he's trying to compute things that are not as computable. right? Like humor. So now he's like trying to figure out like, and now he's gonna have to cycle through all these different languages, figure out like what word play is that here, and then, oh, that's the joke, and then like figure. So like again,
that's not what his logic sense was designed for.
Exactly. It's not designed for that.
He's doing something outside of his normal programming.
Yeah. Whereas with riddles, or the other thing too is it could even be that since riddles are his thing, those are maybe higher up on his like. Those are in his RAM and not in his hard drive.
Yeah.
They're in the ones that you can quickly get to, whereas like deep in the hard drive or
instead of clicking through like 4 different files to try and find it and then having to load it.
Every riddle
and everything like
that he's ever encountered.
All the jokes,
those are right at the top, whereas jokes, like, no, he has to now like think through it. He can't just go through a library index and find the riddles.
Yeah.
So.
And so right here at the end, after Eddie says my heart pumps purple piss for you, Jake fell into an uncontrollable fit of laughter. Great. Now Eddie's got Jake on the edge too. Just like it infects everyone.
Well,
right?
it's good to see some laughter after what they've been going through the last little bit. I mean, since going on the train here, we haven't. Well, I mean, even before that, it's not like it was.
A stroll through the park to get there.
It wasn't sunshine and lollipops before the train, but it's been ever since they left River Crossing. There was like some somber and like some everyone's like on edge a little bit as they're approaching Lud, and ever since they reached that bridge, it's been freaking downhill and it's been nothing but bad. So laughter, have we seen that since they came onto approaching the bridge?
No.
Probably not. So it's been a while. So it's good to see. Good to see Jake laughing finally.
Yeah, and I notated here. So it's a longer pause after each joke so far. So that's interesting to see.
Yeah.
And then your note here is basically what you were just explaining, right?
Yeah, and exactly. And that's where when you start to see the further delay, I think that's what's kind of showing it to me is like this isn't just like. Again, because I think the previously reading this, I always took it as like he was kind of indignant, and again, I think King even uses the phrases like madness. So it's like I always put it more on like a sentient level. Like first he's mad, then it starts to like drive him crazy. But no, I think now that I'm thinking about it more from the scientific realm of like he's a computer, like you're overloading him. He can't. Like and Eddie just keeps throwing them at him, so it's like it's anybody that's used a computer in the last 30 something years, we've all been at a spot where you start to overtax that computer. It starts to run slower,
there clicking the mouse over and over again.
Yeah, it starts to run slower. Things start to not respond. You may even crash and get a blue screen or whatever. We've all been there, and I think that's essentially what Eddie's doing to Blaine. And like if he had just told a couple jokes at a pace, like if he had started this an hour ago, I don't think this would have worked. I think it really had to be a rapid fire. Because that starts to just overload the data banks in Lud, and that's what's getting him to delay further.
And we're going into my third section here, just my breakdown here, and each one is started off with a joke.
Yeah.
So, one last note here before we move on to the next one is I love Roland instantly switching to like the authority figure, just like at River Crossing.
Yeah.
And then your note ties in with that.
Yeah, I said like Judge Roland, because I think we've started to understand that the gunslingers there's many hats that a gunslinger wears. Well, no hat also.
Sometimes on, sometimes off.
Yeah, but ultimately we've started to see it a little bit where it isn't just he's not just a gunslinger.
Yeah.
There's a knight involved, and I think that at River Crossing we even saw like kind of a judge, like
a diplomat.
A diplomat. There's all these different things that are involved with being a gunslinger, and right here he's becoming authoritative. It's a judge. It's like, hey, no, we set the fucking rules up front, motherfucker. You're not changing it on us now. Like that's not acceptable. So. I like that. Let's also be glad that Blaine's decides to hold to the rules, right? There's so many villains we've seen throughout things.
Literally, okay, hold that thought for a second, because literally after this next section, I have a note about that.
Oh, yeah, because I was thinking like the Joker, right? That would just be like, oh, I made the rules. I'm changing them. And then he just shoots someone, right?
I lied.
Let's just thank God that Blaine has some inhibitor that's keeping him like to his word. Because we mentioned that a few episodes back because Susanna said something like that. Like, how is he going to act if he loses? Is he going to like actually let us off, or is he gonna like get vindictive and just fucking electrocute us all, or still derail
gas us or what?
Yeah, whatever it is. So we've already discussed that possibility of, is Blaine gonna actually follow through? So yeah, but go on.
Yeah, so Eddie asks another riddle / joke, and I made sure to put riddle / joke because technically Blaine and Roland both do call them riddles, but I know that you would be offended if I called them just straight up riddles. So I had to make sure to put riddle / joke there so you don't get mad at me.
That's good, because there is a difference.
The lights in the Barony coach begin to flicker and the walls start fading in and out, going translucent. Seeing this out of the corner of his eye made Eddie feel a bit whoopsie, and that's a direct quote from the book, a bit whoopsie. Eddie tells Blaine to tells Blaine to answer, and Roland says to answer or to declare the contest over and hold to his promise. Something touches Eddie's elbow, and he looks down to see Susanna's small and shapely hand. He takes it and gives it a squeeze and smiles at her. He hopes the smile was more confident than he felt. He felt like they were going to win the contest, but didn't know how Blaine would do when they did. I just remember getting so
now
angry.
He's catching up to that idea. Like, because again, Susanna had it a while ago where she's like, how's he going to react? And now Eddie's catching up where he's like, okay, we've got him on the ropes, but how's he going to react?
This is my note here. I remember getting so angry at that line. Of course they're going to win. There are heroes and villains always find a way of weaseling out of the agreement. You know, like you just mentioned with like the Joker and stuff like that. Well, I lied, bang, and it just shoots the guy anyway. You know, it happens all the time, and that's just like fucking Blaine.
And I knew you would hate that too, because you're just the good little Boy Scout that you know. So if
I'm the Jedi,
you're the one that would scream to a villain, "You cheated!"
Yeah,
it's like the villain's like, "Yeah, I'm a villain."
Yeah, exactly.
But you're the one that would get all indignant, like, "God damn, you cheated! That you're not playing fair."
Yeah, exactly.
So that's I love it.
I mean, the funny thing is that I actually thought that earlier, and I think I may have mentioned something about this, or I meant to mention it. Dude, I felt like it's such, like, because they do talk about it. They talk about how much time had passed. And I'm just like, dude, fucking Blaine's cheating. Like, oh, yeah, it's going to take this long. It really is only 4 hours. Fucking cheater.
Yeah, well, again, with Roland's World, we understand that time doesn't run very...
But again, villain. Cheating. We're already worried about it. So my next note, when Eddie gets worried about what Blaine will do and when they win, I started to as well. He could kill them out of spite, right? Or does he go with the agreement of the rules of the contest prohibit him from doing something with his programming, like you were saying, like an inhibitor and everything like that?
Yeah.
I see. That's where it's a question about that, and I'm going to come back to this thought later. You just mentioned it, like, no, Blaine has to because of an inhibitor and everything like that.
Well, I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying.
No, I know.
Hopefully, if it is turned into a full on, they give victory, that he's actually going to hold to it. And it seems nothing. He hasn't given us anything that would make us seem like he's going to change the rules.
Well, we're gonna come back to that in a minute.
Yeah, and I already covered that. Yeah, Susanna mentioned this previously.
Yep.
How he might react to if he loses. We don't know that yet, but I do appreciate that Susanna brought that up earlier.
Yeah,
ahead of
exactly.
the curve.
So Blaine answers the latest joke / riddle as a question, and then firms his voice and answers it instead of asking a question, and then tries to explain the logic of it. And Eddie stops him, saying, "Trying to kill time won't work." Blaine insists on him stop asking these silly questions, and Eddie cuts across him, saying, "Then stop the mono," and he will. If he's that upset, stop now, and he'll stop telling jokes. Blaine says no, and Eddie tells another one. Another click so loud it was like having a blunt spike driven against his eardrum. Eddie's perspective there. A pause of 5 seconds. Now the green dot on the route map was so close to Topeka that it lit the word like neon each time that it flashed. Blaine answers, and Eddie thinks about where he first heard the joke in an alley behind Dolly's or some similar gathering spot, but Blaine had apparently paid a price forcing his mind into a channel that could answer. The Barony coach lights were flashing more wildly than ever, and Eddie could hear a low humming noise coming from inside the walls. It reminded Eddie of an amp that was about to blow up. Pink light flashes from the route map, and Little Blaine sounded like a voice of a character from an old Warner Brothers cartoon telling him to stop it. You're killing him. Eddie thinks, yeah, well, what do you think he's trying to do to us, Squirt? And I said, my note here is, good. He should die. Stupid Blaine, I have zero sympathy for either one of them at this point. Fuck them. They're trying to kill the content. Fuck them. They mass murdered the entire town of Ludd. I say they, but, even if it is just Big Blaine.
Yeah.
Like, no.
But Little Blaine's playing Smithers to the Mr. Burns.
Right,
so,
yeah. He's the little guy that's, like, you throw 4 criminals into a prison cell, then you throw a spy in with them. What are you in for? Oh, they caught me stealing. And it's like, what did you guys do? And then they confess, and he comes out and goes, okay, that guy did this, that guy did this. He murdered so-and-so, the body's hidden here, and that guy stole treasure, he buried it under this tree. And it's like, you fucker. That's what I think Little Blaine is. My next note here is I just put, Antenna time? Question mark. I know we've talked about the antenna and everything like that from your first time reading.
Yeah, and that was my interpretation first time, but I think by this point I had completely ignored that because I think there's no need. Blaine is obviously getting cooked as it is. I don't think we need any antenna action anymore.
Okay, so moving on to the next one. Eddie considers giving Blaine the one that he gave Jake around the campfire. What's green, weighs 100 tons, and lives at the bottom of the ocean? Moby Snot.
But see, that one I'm glad he didn't, because there Blaine could have just pulled the plug on the whole thing and said, nope, that's a cheat. There's no logic there.
But decides not to, as he wants to stick further inside the bounds of logic than that one allowed. And then quoting the next section here, because I think it's really good, directly from the book, he wanted to stick further inside the bounds of logic than that one allowed, and he could do it. He didn't think that he would have to get much more surreal than the level of, say, a third grade with a fair to good collection of Garbage Pail Kids cards in order to fuck Blaine up royally. Pausing there, fuck up Blaine royally, ... and permanently. Pausing there, do you have any idea what Garbage Pail Kids cards are?
Yeah, I should have grabbed pictures. I actually collected some as a kid.
Did you really?
Uh-huh.
I had never heard of them, never caught that line before. I had
really?
to Google it today during that. I never realized that it was like, I just didn't catch that it was capitalized, so it's a proper noun and everything.
Yeah.
like
Anyway,
that.
sorry I don't have it, but if you're not familiar with what it is, Google Garbage Pail Kids. They're pretty awesome.
They're trading cards with jokes on them.
Yeah, I loved those as a kid. And they're just like kind of grotesque a little bit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're great. Love them.
So because no matter how many emotions his fancy dipolar circuits had allowed him to mimic, he was still a computer. Even following Eddie this far into Riddledom's Twilight Zone had caused Blaine's sanity to totter.
Yeah.
So this is one of those moments where Eddie shows just how smart he really is. He recognized that he could go all out on Blaine, do a full court press and everything like that. It could really open that he could leave the door open for a loophole.
Yeah.
Blaine says that's not a riddle. That's against the rules of the contest.
Yeah.
It has to be solvable kind of thing.
Like, what do I have in my pocket?
Yeah, exactly. That's not a riddle. That doesn't work. Instead, he knows exactly what is needed to get the job done and doesn't go fancier than that. That is very Roland of him. A lot of times people would overthink a problem and stuff like that. Roland is simplest thing is walk through the town.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when they were talking about detouring around Ludd.
Yeah.
Simplest thing is go through it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a shit show. I know it is.
Yeah.
But that's the simplest thing. That is a very Roland moment there, very hidden in an Eddie paragraph. That's why I took it word for word, is because he's pulling himself back. And I feel like it's a gunslinger Eddie pulling that fucking wisecracking New York Eddie back and going, calm the fuck down, dude.
Yeah.
We already got him. He's already on fire. You don't need to do anything else.
Yeah.
He's doused himself in gasoline. He's holding the lighter. All he has to do is just touch himself and the blaze goes. Because that's the whole phrase from Henry, right? Could talk the devil into setting himself on fire.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Baraki says Laffy Taffy jokes would also worked well.
Oh, yeah, Laffy Taffy jokes. Yeah, along those lines.
Indeed.
And then what do you got here for a note?
So my note is, I think this is the line that put me off of realizing what was killing Blaine. It says driving him mad, but instead, as I mentioned before, I think it's just frying his circuits, because now he has to find the answer in light of emotion that he can never fully understand, and it's just too much for him. It's more of a totally melting him down than really driving him mad. At least that's how I view it, even though the phrasing here is technically driving him mad. But
sure,
I just don't think, I think even driving him mad, I've never actually questioned that too heavily before, because if you did, that would almost presume like an element of like thought and emotion into Blaine that he doesn't really have. He's a computer. Like, he can fake it as much as he wants. Yeah.
But does he actually feel rage towards them? Does he actually feel anger? Does he actually feel fear?
Yeah, that's an interesting question if he does, but I think like going mad, like, or being driven mad, I think it's more of a fact that, like, yes, it could look like madness because he's literally coming apart at the bolts type thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's because you're overloading it. You're asking, it's like grabbing a little tiny pocket calculator for $1 and trying to get it to, like, I don't know, play a game. Like, you're going to fry it. Like, it can't do that. It's beyond its capability.
Yeah, you try to upload even Tetris on it, it's still just...
Yeah. Or, I mean, I've seen people, set up Raspberry Pis on fire. Raspberry Pis are just cheap little $180 tiny computer things. And
they're designed to basically run, like, Internet Explorer. Like, that's it. Even that taxes it.
Yeah, exactly. So like right now here on my screen, I've got 2 different windows. I've got a streaming software. I've got 3 windows actually because of the slideshow. So it's like that. It would be too much. A Raspberry Pi, that would overload it. And I've actually seen someone catch one on fire because I think they had Google Chrome with 3 tabs open. And it overheated it so much that it actually like fried it on the inside. So that's essentially what I think is happening with Blaine, is you're asking way too much of him.
Exactly. So. After asking another joke/riddle, a low squalling starts up from beneath them, under the floor. Suddenly, the Barony coach sways violently right to left. Susanna screams as Jake is thrown into her lap. The gunslinger grabs both of them to steady them. Blaine answers the joke/riddle and says, God's damn you, 9 minutes and 50 seconds. So now we got a time. There's the bomb with the timer. It's put up there. Eddie tells him, I mean, he said it before, but now we get like countdown here in the next little bit. Eddie tells him to give up before he blows his mind completely. If he doesn't quit, that is what is going to happen, and they both know it. Blaine refuses, and Eddie says he has 1 million of these puppies. He's been hearing them his whole life, and they stuck in his mind like fly sticking to fly paper. Asks if Blaine wants to give up, and Blaine says no, 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Eddie says, okay, Blaine, you asked for it. Here comes the cruncher. Why did the dead baby cross the road? The Mono takes another gigantic lurch. Eddie doesn't understand how they are staying on the track after that, but it is. The low squalling has turned into a screaming sound and is now way louder. The walls, floor, ceiling begin to cycle between opacity and transparency. One moment enclosed in the cabin, the next they were rushing over a gray daylight landscape that stretched flat and featureless to a horizon, which ran across the world in a straight line. And just that last description there, stretched flat and featureless to a horizon, which ran across the world in a straight line. Yeah, that sounds like Kansas to me.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I've been to Nebraska and Kansas. That's them to a T. Like, just flat.
I hear there's some friendly people in the cornfields.
No.
In Nebraska.
No. I'm not a fan of children in the corn.
Oh, Randall Flagg's out in the corn.
Who?
What, are you going to try to deny Randall Flagg
I don't
now,
know who
sir?
that is.
He's out there in the corn, sir.
I don't know who you're talking about.
You know it full well.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Out there with the rats and the weasels.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Sure. You could deny.
I'm listening to Full Dark No Stars that has rats in it. 1922. It's good. It's a good read.
Yeah.
Yeah, set in Hemingford Home, Nebraska.
So I wonder if there's
first time I've ever been there.
Yeah. So now you're denying Mother Abigail too.
What are you talking about?
I mean, if you want to deny the best non-Dark Tower book in the Stephen King universe, then
second.
Let's
not go crazy over it, sir. You got a note right here.
I really can't wait to see how this plays out on screen. Like this, just the images here are great and pretty vivid. I just can't wait to see it on screen.
Oh yeah, I know. Like especially with Flanagan, in the potential for him to be doing this. This is just
yeah. I can't wait. I cannot wait to see it.
And then I have my note here is Blaine is seriously malfunctioning now. Like, like it's. I think, did you say it earlier or do you say it later where it's steam coming out of his ears? I don't know if that was earlier or later, but that's apt right now.
Yeah.
So going on, Blaine's voice coming from the speakers is now that of a panicky child saying he needs time and logic circuits to use just a moment. Roland simply says, answer. That's it, answer. Blaine says he needs more time and they must give it to him, and his voice has a cracked triumph in it. No temporal limit for answerings were set, Roland of Gilead, hateful gunslinger out of the past that should have stayed dead. No, Roland agreed. No time limits were set. You are quite right. But you may not kill us with a riddle still unanswered, Blaine, until Pika draws nigh. Answer. And so this is where I say trying to milk the clock, stupid Blaine. So I know your note here, and I want you to cover your note, and then I want you to read your note, and then let me respond to it real fast.
Yeah, because the way he even says it here, I just need time. All the logic circuits are in use. Just a moment, like that. And again, that goes to what I was saying. And I don't know how I've missed this. Again, I think I just focus so much on like the madness and like it's short circuited, whatever. But I don't think I've ever really thought about it in the computer sense until this time. And that's really what it is. I don't think he's trying to milk the clock. I think legitimately he is completely tapped. This is like when you hit Control-Alt-Delete and it says like your CPU usage is 99.99%, and you can't even get like something to like closed. Like everything is just locked up. I think that's really where he's at. I don't think he's actually trying to cheat here. I think he can't process. Like he's done. He's tapped out. He's he's at the end of his line pretty much here.
Okay.
That's how I'm interpreting this. He's wasted is the what I said there. Giving some GTA language.
Good old GTA. He's wasted. I have one question for you regarding that. All this time I've been letting you give that opinion and everything like that about how he's not milking the clock, he's not trying to cheat and everything like that. But let me ask you, why can't it be both? If he is trying to get time to think and everything like that, that is still technically milking the clock.
No, because if he's in as bad a shape as I believe he is, he's beyond the realm of like trying to finagle like strategy. I think at this point he is like this is like the last couple seconds of a Bond movie when the villain's like lair is like going up in fucking flames and blowing up. Like he's at that point he's not trying to figure out how to like stop Bond. Now he's like, can I escape and actually survive this? Or he's just like given the evil, like I'm gonna die. Like like I don't think he has enough in him at this point. I think it's 100% just like I can't like because is it asking about time too? And he can't even give a time. Whatever. Like I don't think he can compute anything right now. I think he's
actually counting down the time still. He in the previous section he actually goes from 9:50 to 9:30.
I think it mentioned something a little bit later though where he has to he says something about like needing to calculate the time.
Maybe he gets to that point in a little bit. He's getting there. But here I don't think that you're correct on that. Then there's one line that tells me otherwise. And King is the one that put it in. It says and his voice has a cracked triumph in it. It's like he realized a loophole.
Yeah.
He realized, hey, you never set a time limit. I can take all the time I want to answer. So I think that here, at least, at this moment, Blaine is saying, I got you. And Roland's saying, no loopholes, no nothing like that, no milking the clock.
Yeah,
answer the question.
I think that's
you're struggling to answer it. I understand.
No, but I think that's an interpretation thing. Because I can interpret that just as much as like he knows he's tapped out, and then he's like remembering the rules. And it's like, wait, we never said any time, so I could take a few seconds to like try to catch up my processing.
That's what I mean by milking the clock.
It's not milking the clock.
It is though.
No, it's.
What do you mean it's not?
You're interpreting it that way. I'm saying the interpretation. All he's coming to is like, wait a minute, you never said there was a time limit, so I can get my CPU back down to 97%, so I can actually calculate your answer,
which would be milking the clock for time. There, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
He's not milking the clock to like try to get them like to delay to get them closer to him killing them. He's just trying to he just needs to get more time to compute the answer. I think it comes down to like the cheating question. I don't think he's trying to cheat here. If that's what you mean by when you say milking the clock,
Roland specifically calls him out that you can't kill us with a riddle unanswered.
Yeah, and he doesn't answer back onto that because again, I don't think that's his intention. I think his intention is I cannot compute your answer right now. I am tapped out. We never said that you only have 30 seconds to answer because if they had, then that's a different story.
Yeah,
I think he's just trying to like get a little bit of time to like bring that down enough to calculate the answer because I don't think he can come up with the answer at this point. I think he's completely tapped. And I guess milking the clock. I guess I'm interpreting your phrase to mean that he's trying to cheat to get them to the death point. And I don't. If you're not saying that, then I think we're arguing over nothing. Because
that's what I'm saying is that here he's not saying that he's not going to answer at this moment. He's saying that he's not. He says that hey, I just need a minute to think.
Yeah.
We never. I mean, just think about it. If we had a trivia contest, we're talking Star Wars here, and you asked me a really tough question, I go, oh man, give me a second, hold on, I know this, hold on.
Yeah.
And you go, no, you got to answer. And I say, hey, fucker, we never agreed on a time limit. Like, give me a second to think. Don't badger me. I think that's what's going on here, and I think that's him milking the clock because the problem is that he's already pointed out there is no stopping. There is no like point. No, they haven't passed like a point of no return or anything like that. But they're still hurtling towards Topeka at hundreds of miles an hour.
Yeah.
So while he may be trying to come up with the answer and everything like that, to us it looks like he's milking the clock. It makes it look like that. And that line there where it says that his voice has a cracked triumph in it is him realizing oh, I can just do that. It was never said in the rules.
And that's an interpretation. The way I would interpret that is that's like him realizing that, like, oh wait, in the rules we never said there was a time limit. So no, I can take a minute because I need to. It's tomato. Like, ultimately, there's no. It's all about interpretation. I don't interpret that he's trying to cheat here. I don't think he has that left in him because I think that like that level of scheming is a little bit beyond what he's capable of, in my opinion. I think he's so far gone at this point. I don't think he has that kind of whatever. I think the squeaking of like Triumph is more of just like, wait a minute, we never set a time limit, so I could have a second. Like I think because again for him it's more of just like he's either, because if he's put into a position at that moment that maybe there was a time limit and he had to like answer at the bell, I think he'd have to say I don't know, which then he loses. So I think he's just trying to more delay it because it's like he knows he thinks he can get the answer. He just needs to get some computing power to try to figure out. Although I would actually say I don't know if he could have figured this one out. This one is
yeah.
I think this one might be beyond his even if he weren't on the ropes, as it were. I don't know if because this one is not as cheating as what's in my pocket, but this one is a little bit outside of the realm of outside of the realms of logic of some of the earlier ones, is what I'd say. I don't think I've heard of a single person that hasn't read this that would know the answer to this. This is pretty close to that edge, I think. But hey, it's iconic though, right?
It is. I mean, it's the riddle.
But I think it's close. But again, because we've talked before, I think it was Chris from Australia that brought up the whole like Tolkien parallels. And I think that's the whole thing, is this is the riddle contest, which is obviously super parallel to Tolkien, and it ends on one that
go into that a little bit for people who haven't read Lord of the Rings.
I guess that's true. But with Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit, I guess, he runs Bilbo runs into Smeagol. He finds the ring.
Gollum, not Smeagol.
Has it in his pocket. They're having a riddle contest. Was it over survival? I'm trying to remember.
It was possession of the ring and survival, wasn't it?
He didn't know he had the ring though.
Gollum?
Yeah, he didn't know he had it. So I think it was just like he's either I'm gonna kill you or I'm gonna lead you out of whatever. Sorry, it's been 20-something years since I've read The Hobbit. But it was a riddle contest.
Baraki says in the chat it was survival.
It was survival. Okay.
Thank you.
And obviously the last one was what do I have in my pocket, which obviously is the riddle. And again, I don't think that King put Eddie that far into the realm of like, come on, that's not a riddle. But I think he put it close enough in that realm where it's like, dude, unless you've heard that joke before, who's ever gonna guess that?
Yeah.
Dude, that's so like both macabre and also just like whatever. So so I'm not even saying like Eddie cheating. I'm just saying that I think what King is doing is like, hey, let's butt up to Lord of the Rings as much as we can, because I think he's got some inspiration from Lord of the Rings in this. So
yeah. So going on to the next section, then the coach cycled to invisible, and Eddie saw a rusty grain elevator go flashing past. He barely had time to register what it was, and it was gone. He figures they are going 300 miles faster than a commercial jet at cruising speed. Little Blaine moans to leave him alone and that they are killing him. Isn't that about what he wanted? Susanna asked in her voice of Detta Walker. To die? That's what he said. We don't mind either. You're not so bad, Little Blaine. Even a world as fucked up as this one has to be a better with your big brother gone. It's just him taking us with him we've been ejecting to all this time. Roland says, last chance to answer or give up the goose. I always got to quote it when Detta shows up, but she has a good point. Blaine wants to die.
Well,
what is it to Little Blaine that he's so worried about?
Haven't we kind of come to the conclusion that Little Blaine kind of feels like captured almost? Like he doesn't feel like he likes Big Blaine a whole lot. So I've always wondered in this whole section, like, why is he so defensive of Big Blaine? It's kind of strange.
Is it a symbiotic, not symbiotic? Symbiotic relationship where if Big Blaine dies, Little Blaine goes too.
Maybe
we've never explored that relationship. It's never gone into more depth.
Yeah,
so we're not spoiling anything or anything like that.
No, it's just an interesting.
It's never even talked about like who Little Blaine was. Yeah. Where did Little Blaine come from? Because if Big Blaine was Blaine, just Blaine, and he went mad, like they all said, that's one of the things we talked about was so terrifying with him, is that he's a computer that went insane.
Yeah, and
So-
my note is there is the fan theory about that the trains flipped and the pink one was Patricia. Blaine was blue. Blaine killed himself but jumped to Patricia, overtook it, and then Patricia, what's left is little Blaine.
Yeah.
Like that can maybe then it's like a self like try to save herself type thing.
That's all she has
It's
left is
'cause-
this little bit that's inside of Big
inside
Blaine.
there. So if Big Blaine dies, she's dead too.
Yeah.
It could be that. I just want to catch up on the chat. Carol says, thanks, Tad. With that explanation, I now understand what's happening with Blaine more. Baraki says, ironic that Blaine calls anyone a hateful thing of the past that should have stayed dead. Which
Yeah.
I do love that line, by the way. That's a wonderful,
great
that's
line.
a wonderful line.
Yeah.
And then Alan says, so Peter is right. Blaine tried to take a knee like a cheater. Alan says Blaine is undeniably an asshole, and he's just a dumb toaster. Either way, LOL. And then Baraki says Blaine intends to kill them either way. He's so proud, so he doesn't want to answer this one and risk there being a worse one next. Still open to what the end is to come. And that's true, too. Like, maybe that's even it, where it's just like, you keep answering it, you're just going to keep getting it more. And, maybe they're getting progressively worse.
He's just trying to
so-
get it so that he stops frying his circuits, and he needs like you said, he needs a minute to think. But
Yeah.
if you take a minute, the game's over. That's the thing, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's looking a little sus here for Blaine that he's trying something.
I don't think he has the mental capacity for that. Now,
Now-
in terms of like, yes, like give me a second because I need to clear my stuff to like try to come up with an answer because he's too prideful to say I lose.
Yeah.
That like I think that's more where he's at. More it's like the difference of like someone that's on the edge of a cliff about to fall off. Like
Yeah.
is that person like conniving about the other guy trying to climb the mountain? No, at that point he's just trying to survive.
Right.
And I think that's so. I don't know. I guess that's how I'm interpreting it. Is I just don't think Blaine has that.
But you also have to remember that this is a murderous, homicidal, mass-murdering motherfucker named Blaine. Like, his whole sole purpose of letting them onto his train is so that he can murder-suicide them with himself. Like, this isn't a logical thing for him to be doing this. If he has inhibitors and he has those programming that says, don't harm humans, the first rule of
Oh, no,
robotics.
he doesn't.
No, exactly, he
No,
doesn't.
he doesn't have that,
So that's
for
where
sure.
I'm saying is, like, this whole, like, he can't cheat. It's not programmed into
No, and I'm
him.
not even saying he can't cheat. I'm just saying at this point, I don't think he's capable of cheating because he is so fucking fried that I don't think his thought process right now is I need to delay to get to the end of the line. It's more of like, I want to answer this question, but I literally cannot right now. I am fucked. I am
Yeah.
completely fried. I need a second. And like, I don't even, because I wonder if he could even comprehend at that moment the time of like to the termination point where it's just like, I can't think right now. And then,
So-
and then of course the quartet of course is going to be thinking more about the end of the line because that's the only
The
thing
end of the line.
that's the only thing they're worried about.
Yeah.
But I guess and it's an interpretation thing. There's nothing like overtly in the text. I think it's all up to interpretation. I guess for me, I don't give him enough. Earlier on, yes, and again we talked about there's some different things. He's overrunning his speed. We also know that at one point where
They say, hey, if it's been 8 hours, I'm bullshit.
Well, and he talked about like his speed at a certain point. There was another point that I think it actually talked about it. We were like, wait, that's higher than he said before.
Yes.
Like, because again, I think he was going beyond like his safety capacitors. He was just like balls to the wall, like redlining.
Yeah.
Because
It's like, yeah, absolutely. We're going to have the time that it takes for me and you to drive to Las Vegas. And it's like, Peter, you have until Las Vegas to tell me the whole story of Lord of the Rings, and I'll buy you a steak dinner. And it's like, great, I got 6 hours. I can do this. And then you floor it and go 95 miles an hour down there like you normally do.
I was about to say I'd already be doing that probably.
And you get there in 4 hours, and I go, what the fuck, dude? I didn't have my full 6 hours. You said, hey, I never said 6
Okay.
hours. I said until we get to Vegas, bitch.
Let me make it clear as well. I'm not defending Blaine in total. I'm just saying at this point right
At
now.
this moment.
Right. I do not think he's
Right.
capable of
So,
strategizing.
Let's pause for a second.
And also, in terms of Vegas, it's a 6-hour drive. I can make it in 5.
I exaggerated a little bit.
That's
I'm
what
sorry.
that's what I always say.
I'm sorry.
I can make it in 5.
So to Todd's point here, and a lot of this was me just wanting to have an open discussion. I actually agree with him after reading his notes in prep and everything like that. I just wanted everyone to have like the side of it. And the reason why Tad is right is this next section here, which I took down word for word. And I'm gonna finish up the chat.
Yeah, real quick, the chat. Barack says Blaine intends to kill himself either way. And I already covered that one. And he says, I think Blaine at this point realizes that Eddie must have like at least 100 more of these at the ready. And that was Brocky as well, which, yeah, I think there's probably I'm sure Blaine's calculated it God, this guy can go all day.
Yeah.
And then Alan says he knew he'd messed up by leaving the back door to bad jokes and had to swallow his pride.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So with that, guys, like I was saying, I'm with Tad on this one here. After all of this discussion and everything like that, I was playing devil's advocate with parts of it. But right here, this is the moment that I agree with Tad. Because this is the quote from the text. You, 16 log 33, all cosine subscripts, anti, in all these years, beam, flood, Pythagorean, Pythagorean, I can't say that word. I didn't realize I couldn't say that word. I've never tried to say it out loud before. Cartesian logic. Dare I a peach, eat a peach, Almond Brothers, Patricia, Crocodile and Whiplash Smile, Clock of Dials, Tick Tock, 11 o'clock, the man's in the moon and he's ready to rock, Incasament, mon cher, oh my head, Blaine dares, Blaine will answer, and then that's the end of the direct quote, and then it says, Blaine, now screaming in the voice of an infant, lapses into another language and begins to sing. Eddie thinks that it's French, but doesn't know any of the words, but when the drums kick in, he knows the song. It's Velcro Fly by ZZ Top.
So, also, can we just point out, isn't it just a very soothing thing when robots sing?
No, it's not. No, it's not. That's that uncanny valley shit that we've been talking about recently.
Like, I can't wait to hear, like, Tim Curry as Blaine just, like, singing some, like, weird French.
Oh, God.
Like, just, I can't wait. It'll be such a happy thing.
Yeah, and so this is where my note here is serious malfunction at this point. I think this is the point where you're talking about just a few minutes ago. I think we've hit the blue screen for Blaine.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that being said, this is very quickly following the previous section that we covered. But I think in that section, that was his last-ditch effort. I think someone said it in the chat to help refresh me with that, where he's, like, trying to take a knee and just, like, run out the time and milk the clock. I think that was his last-ditch effort. It didn't work, and it broke him. Like, right here, this is the moment where if you're inside Blaine's mind, AI computing little thing, and you just see a twig just go, tsh, I think this is it. And I think this is where your point, this is where you should make that argument. There's no coming back for this for Blaine.
Oh, yeah.
There is no Control-Alt-Delete. There is no closing a few windows to try and get some computing power and everything like that. I think everything that before this may have been a stall tactic to try and maybe, and it could be a debate, whether he's trying to answer the riddle / joke or whether he's trying to stall to kill them all and not answer it and cheat into a victory. Either way, right here, this moment, this is where Blaine breaks.
Yeah.
And Eddie's the one that did it.
Yeah, for
all
sure.
With, why did the dead baby cross the road?
Yeah. Alan also mentioned OMG, good call on the Patricia fan theory. I can't take credit for that. We had someone email that in. I don't remember, and I didn't give it all the credit in the world, but that's the essentials of it. That's the fan theory that we've been saying. I wish I could remember who it was, but I did go over that really quickly.
This is where you note your note. Read that note.
Oh, yeah. If this is a Bugs Bunny cartoon, this is the point that Blaine would have steam coming out of his ears.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm sorry I stole your thunder on that one. That is a great note. But yeah, this is the moment I would 100% agree with you. Is that here there is no coming back for Blaine. 20 seconds ago when he says, hey, we never set a time limit, I think that's the last ditch effort. That's the Hail Mary for all the sports terms and everything like that. That's the moment where he has this my one prayer, this is my one chance.
Yeah.
And Roland says, fuck you, answer.
Yeah.
And I think that breaks Blaine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because this is that point.
Because and I guess it's still up to interpretation. Like, what is the delay for? Is it delay to try to get them closer to death? But I think it could just be like, I need more time to compute. And when Roland says no,
error.
Like okay, like, and then you
literally see it.
You're adding, you're adding more data in there, and not giving him time to fully So yeah, there's just he's dead. He's
exactly.
he's
do you have
done.
Do you have your Kindle up right now?
Yeah, oh yeah, I did, and I looked. Yeah,
you checked this. Okay,
yeah.
I have a typo in my Kindle version. I wanted to know.
They're all the same. Kindle version's all the same.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Mine says Velero, not Velcro.
Yeah, so the C is an E.
Yeah.
In Velcro flies. So yeah.
Valero fly.
Yeah, Valero fly. Well,
Is
I
that-
guess
is
maybe
that-
it's French.
Is that French for Velcro? Oh my God, is it really?
No, I'm just making a joke.
What is Valero?
Probably nothing. That doesn't look like a French word.
Oh. Apparently there's an app called Valero. Anyway, moving on. So the glass over the route map blows out, and a moment later the map itself explodes, revealing twinkling lights and a maze of circuit boards. The lights are pulsing to the time of the drums. I don't know why, but I didn't realize that. That's kind of creepy. Like the drums and the lights. I don't know why, but suddenly blue fire flashed out, sizzling the surface around the hole in the wall where the map had been. Deep from within the wall towards Blaine's blunt, bullet-shaped snout came a thick grinding noise. I remember thinking that this is the first time reading this. This is them starting to slow down, even if it is just a little bit. Like a grinding noise, like something chunked, and now they're something melted, and now they're and they're grinding down the rail.
Yeah.
So, the rest of this subchapter, I have to read word for word. It's a little bit lengthy, so bear with me. But here we go. It crossed the road because it was stapled to the chicken, you dopey fuck, Eddie yelled. He got to his feet and started to walk toward the smoking hole where the route map had been. Susanna grabbed at the back of his shirt, but Eddie barely felt it. Barely knew where he was, in fact. The battle fire had dropped over him, burning him everywhere with its righteous heat, sizzling his sight, frying his synapses, and roasting his heart in its holy glow. He had Blaine in his sights, and although the thing behind the voice was already mortally wounded, he was unable to stop squeezing the trigger. I shoot with my mind. What's the difference between a truckload of bowling balls and a truckload of dead woodchucks? Eddie raved. You can't unload a truckload of bowling balls with a pitchfork. A terrible shriek of mingled anger and agony issued from the hole where the route map had been. It was followed by a gust of blue fire, as if somewhere forward of the Barony coach an electric dragon had exhausted violently. Jake called a warning, but Eddie didn't need it. His reflexes had been replaced with razor blades. He ducked, and the burst of electricity went over his right shoulder, making the hair on the side of his neck stand up. He drew the gun he wore, a heavy .45 with a worn sandalwood grip, one of two revolvers which Roland had brought out of Midworld's ruin. He kept walking as he bore down on the front of the coach. And of course he kept talking. As Roland had said, Eddie would die talking, as his old friend Cuthbert had done. Eddie could think of many worse ways to go, and only one better. Say, Blaine, you ugly sadistic fuck. Since we're talking riddles, what is the greatest riddle of the Orient? Many men smoke, but few men chew. Get it? No? So sorry, Charlie. How about this one? Why'd the woman name her son 7.5? Because she drew his name out of a hat. He had reached the pulsing square. Now he lifted Roland's gun, and the Barony coach suddenly filled with its thunder. He put all 6 rounds into the hole, fanning the hammer with the flat of his hand in the way Roland had shown them, knowing only that this was right, this was proper, this was Caw, goddammit, fucking Caw. It was the way you ended things if you were a gunslinger. He was one of Roland's tribe, all right. His soul was probably damned to the deepest pit of hell, and he wouldn't have changed it for all of the heroin in Asia. I hate you, Blaine cried in his childish voice. The splinters were gone from it now, and it was growing soft and mushy. I hate you forever. It's not dying that bothers you, is it? Eddie asked. The lights in the hole where the route map had been were fading. More blue fire flashed, but he had to pull his head back to avoid it. The flame was small and weak. Soon Blaine would be as dead as the pubes and the grays in Lud. It's losing that bothers you. Hate for... The word degenerated into a hum. The hum became a kind of stuttery, thudding sound. Then it was gone. Eddie looked around. Roland was there, holding Susanna with one arm curved around her butt as one might hold a child. Her thighs clasped around his waist. Jake stood on the gunslinger's other side with Oi in his at his heel. Drifting out of the hole where the route map had been was a peculiar charred smell, somehow not unpleasant. To Eddie it smelled like burning leaves in October. Otherwise the hole was as dead and dark as a corpse's eye. All the lights in there had gone out. Your goose is cooked, Blaine, Eddie thought, and your turkey baked. Happy fucking Thanksgiving.
And that's the bell, I think.
That's ding ding ding. We have a winner. Raise Eddie's hand. You know, that's it. And I just put, take that, you condescending, homicidal, psychotic jerk. I fucking hate Blaine. I do, but I get chills every time, especially reading it out loud. That was great. That was fun to read. I love that.
Yeah.
And this is one of my all-time favorite moments in the series.
Yeah.
Just so good for Eddie just to put it down. And I didn't write this down, but I'm going to talk on it before you give me your note here.
My note is just to agree with you. Yeah, this is like
this
is a top moment for the series. Over the last few weeks, it dawned on me that some stuff later in the series would be covered in these book clubs. I guess like I knew it in a way, but I didn't like fully
never like fully thought on it.
Yeah, come to the terms of like, hey, one day we're going to be like actually going through like these later books. Honestly, I think even back in like 2015 when we started this and started book clubs, this is like probably the latest moment that I've ever really thought about covering heavily. Not that it's like all downhill from here, not at all, but it just is just one of the biggest moments, one of my favorite moments of the series. And you know, when we first imagined the book club series, this is one of the first sections that I thought of.
It is the big one that we've always talked about when we started talking about doing the book clubs.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, man, can you imagine doing Eddie killing Blaine?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and also I threw in the chat, hard copy, also Valero Fly.
Really?
So I wonder if King typoed and his editor was not a music fan and did not catch the typo there. Because Alan brought up maybe it's a copyright thing, but I don't think there's any problem with mentioning brands in literature.
It's said Velcro Fly several times before already.
Yeah, and most of I mean, King's whole career he talks. I mean, that's one of the things that makes him unique. I mean, it's so ubiquitous nowadays. A lot of authors do it, but back when King started in the '70s, people didn't say like he went to McDonald's and got a burger. They just said he went to a diner or something. Like nobody mentioned brands. Like, you know, at one point, like, oh, you know, she pulled out a bottle of Tide or whatever. Like King was so unique in that when he started because nobody wrote that way.
And King doesn't always do it. That's the funny thing is that he'll talk about it where it's like, and the person grabbed a cola and it's like, well, was it a Pepsi or Coke? Like you know, like he doesn't have to distinguish it, but there are times where he does that.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any. I don't know copyright law, obviously, but I'm under the understanding that you could pretty much do whatever in literature because you're not like infringing on copyright. You're just mentioning like, you know, oh, and then he picked up the Craftsman hammer. You know, like it just whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. But what were we gonna say?
So the thing that dawned on me while we were discussing this and everything is that we really were kind of foolish for not seeing this coming. Like, we talked about it, like, our first times reading through and everything like that, is Blaine going to uphold it? Are they going to have to weasel it out and everything like that? We had to know that this was going to end with someone getting killed. Whether it's Blaine or...
I just don't think I could grasp the idea that you could kill Blaine.
And that's what I'm saying is, like, that's where we're kind of just like...
Especially when
we should have known better because, like, it's this line right here at the end of this is that... Let me find it real fast.
Like even separating his mind from the train, because like if his computer banks were on the train, maybe there would be an easier way to quote unquote kill him. But they already established that like there's this whole underground realm where all these computer banks are. That's Blaine's brain, which is a fun thing to say. So I think with adding that, like he's unkillable, like in the sense of what we would have been thinking of when we went into this the first time. That's what I didn't go into this going, oh, they're gonna be able to kill Blaine. There's no way. Like This
is where we as constant readers should be able to look back on it with hindsight, but I still feel like we haven't yet. Is that we should have known that this is how it comes out because of this line right here. It's basically spelled out for us, in my opinion. Knowing only that this was right, this was proper, this was Caw, goddammit, fucking Caw. It was the way you ended things if you were a gunslinger. We saw Roland deal with Tull. He didn't try to negotiate. He didn't try anything like that. He fucking murdered every single man, woman, and child in that town because that's what had to be done. Yeah. When Roland got into the underground chamber with the pubes, murdered every fucking person he came across, except for that one who gave him information and he let him live like a gunslinger would. He said, you know, you're going to tell me what I want to know and everything like that. But we should have known, like, especially like looking back on it, it just makes so much sense that, Oh, duh, of course. He's a gunslinger. He doesn't know any other way.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's just, for me, it's just like this dawning for me today, doing this prep and everything like that. I'm like, God, really? Like, them killing Blaine, Antana, killing Blaine the train, the mono kind of thing,
Yeah.
is the only way that this could have ended. That's the only way it could have ended.
There was just no way to see what
how it would happen. Yeah.
How exactly.
So like we were talking like they need to try to win the contest, and they have all their little meetings and everything like that. Well, we got to try to find a riddle that'll stump him and everything like that. Man, they should have known that they should have been looking for a way to kill him.
Yeah.
Not to win the contest. See, that's the thing, is that I think that may be a little bit on Roland then at that point, because he forgot that they're gunslingers, not, they're not people at a fair day, doing a riddle contest.
Well, the best one there was Court, and I don't think anyone would say he's anything but a gunslinger. So,
I mean, is he?
Oh yeah.
Is he?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't sit at the table with them.
Well, yeah, because you got to keep him separate, because it's kind of like the, like when you have like the jump schools and the paratroopers, and you have like a sergeant that could dress down like a 5-star general. If the general's taking the airborne class, like,
sure,
you got a sergeant that could dress down, because like he's outside of it. It's not in the normal.
He doesn't sit at the officers' table, though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
So that's what I'm saying, is that he may train them and everything like that.
He's a
but he doesn't sit at the gunslinger's table.
He's a gunslinger.
I'm just saying.
You got to have a gunslinger to make a gunslinger, sir.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You don't have to have a general to make a general.
Yeah, usually. That's why they have those colonels that are the general's lackeys, because those are the guys that are trying to work their way up and get the rub from the other general to get there. All right. So moving on to subchapter 5. I'm not sure if we're going to get through everything that we planned on here.
It's understandable. There's a lot to unpack here with with the death of Blaine that we just covered. And obviously, we're going to see it here in your subchapter. This threat's not over yet.
Yeah, so subchapter 5 here. The shrieking stopped, and there was a final grinding thud. Then those sounds stopped as well. Roland realized the engines had died, but they were still coasting along the track. He tells the Tet to get to the back of the train. If they are close enough to the termination point, they are still going to crash. He points to the instrument that looks like a cross between a piano and a harp and tells them to stay away from that because it may shift. He tells them to lay down and put their hands over their head. They all get down, chin in the blue carpet, and Roland apologizes to Eddie and says that he had once asked the same apology from Cuthbert for the same reason, and says that there is an arrogant blindness in him. Eddie is uncomfortable, but tells him that no pardon crying is necessary. Roland says that there is, and he held Eddie's jokes in contempt, and then now their lives are saved by them, and cries his pardon and says he's forgotten the face of his father. Eddie says that Roland needs no pardon. He has not forgotten anyone's face. He just can't help his nature. Roland considers this and realizes that this is a wonderful and at the same time awful thing. And that it is something that had never occurred to him before, not once in his life. He knew he was captive of Ka, but his nature?
Yeah. So
Roland's getting some kind of Zen realization here for the first time in a very, very long life. So I have to say, as we were barreling down this thing and I was doing the prep on this, for maybe unrelated reasons, I happen to be listening to the Terminator 2 soundtrack. And there's that really fast song when the tanker is going to crash in there, and it's like very fast pace. It's a very fitting song to be listening to when this train is barreling towards the termination point. I do have to say, if you're reading this section, maybe pull that up on your music provider of choice and listen to it. I think it's called Tanker Crash or something like that is the name of the track, but it's very, very, very good. Works out really well. Next up, honestly, I can't say I've ever remembered Roland's apology happening this way when they're face down in the carpet. Like if you would have asked me a month ago, like tell me about Roland's apology to Eddie after Blaine, like I would have said they're standing outside, after they get out of everything, and then Roland puts his hand on his shoulder and sorry, cry your part. Like that's how I would have pictured. That's how I picture it in my head.
I swear I have a memory of him dropping to one knee in front of Eddie, and Eddie just being like, "Oh my God, like what are you doing? Get up!"
Instead, they're all face down.
They're face down,
holding their heads. Like,
kiss your ass goodbye.
Yeah, Wow. I don't know. It's just my mind has never grabbed this properly because this is all happening with their faces into the ground.
That's one of the reasons why I love doing these book clubs is because there are times where it's just like the trading cards that I've read this book 7 or 8 times and I've never caught that that's an actual like trademark thing from the past.
Oh yeah,
and everything. I've never had one. My mom would never allow them.
The only way you ever could have got some is there was a point when they'd put Garbage Pail Kids stickers in like those bubble, like 50-cent things where you'd pop it out and have like those little like plastic bubbles you'd pull out like a sticker. Like that'd be the only way you ever would have encountered one. And if you never got to a machine that had one, that definitely wouldn't have happened. It looks like with your note you thought the same thing.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I was saying is that I think that Roland, they're standing. And Roland drops to one knee in front of Eddie. That's what I was saying. It's like that it happens after they're out of the train.
Yeah, wild. So then my other note here before we move on. First, Eddie blows Blaine's mind. Now he's blowing Roland's.
Yeah. In 2 different ways.
Yes. So going on here, it says Roland then thanks Eddie and starts another thought but is interrupted by Blaine crashing into its final halt. All 4 of them are thrown up the center aisle of the Barony coach. Oi was in Jake's arms barking. Roland hits the front wall of the car shoulder first. Despite the padding of the carpeted wall, including some resilient stuff under the carpet, the impact numbed him. The chandelier came loose and rained broken glass on them. And Jake moved just in time to not get hit by the husk of it. The instrument flew as well through the coach, crashing into one of the sofas. The car began to tilt to the right, and Roland meant to shield Susanna and Jake with his body if it went over, but it came to a rest. The trip was over. So,
whoa,
yeah, woo, that's what I always picture is the Star Trek Generations when the Enterprise D saucer separates, it goes down and crashes. That's a pretty violent thing, and people flying all over the place, and furniture and everything else flying. Like that's what I picture kind of with this kind of thing.
Doing the prep today, we watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 last night, and there was a train crash in there, and I'm just picturing that, and there was even a piano too.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh hey, hey there.
Yeah. Pretty violent crash.
Yeah.
Was my first note.
My note goes with that. Just imagine if this had been at full speed, what would have happened?
I don't know if they feel much.
No.
I think it's just
squish.
it's just gonzo.
Yeah. I put a note that has to be a hard hit for Roland to hit so hard that it numbs you in the shoulder. Like I've hit my elbow and my arms got numb for a split second and everything like that.
But think about it, it's his whole body weight being propelled into a wall. Even if it's padded, that's a lot of impact to get thrown in there.
I don't know if I've ever experienced like numbness coming from like a shoulder and everything like that. So that's interesting.
And Carol says, how old are you? Old enough to remember when Garbage Pail Kids came out, and that was all anyone could talk about. I don't know when that was, but I remember just having this stuff as a kid. I did get a lot of stuff handed down from my parents that wasn't necessarily of my generation per se, but that was probably before my time. I think I would guess, because I don't know if any other kids I knew really ever talked about it. It was more just one of those weird things that my parents hooked me up with.
1985.
Oh, the year I was born.
So
then my next note, also once again, Jake is risking himself for Oi by holding him and not protecting his head and neck like Roland told him to. See? Look at that.
He's fine. Stop it.
What if something had fallen down on top of him? We've all had to assume the position at some point in our lives. And see, I'm just saying, Jake here breaking the rules again because of Oi.
Good boy.
I will, and then my next note, I will say there's very little that is as disorienting as something that is tilting a bit. Be it a train car like this or a boat that has sustained damage, it is just so not only disorienting but unnerving. Just like a slight tilt. Like it's not like a whole fucking it's not like you're in a car on its side, but like if you're in a car and you're just on like a umpteenth degree tilt, like it's just there's something about that because cars are the same. I think most of us have probably felt that in a car, where you're on like some sort of road that's not even.
There's a
like
turn.
It's just doesn't you just feel like wrong. It just doesn't something about it. It's just I think it's your equilibrium probably getting thrown off, but it's not.
There's a turn going to work, and you come a different way than I do from your house to than from my house. But there's a turn where I have to turn, and it's like a steep hill, but you're turning as you take that that turn right there. It throws me off every time.
Yeah,
I don't like it. The other thing that came to my mind when I saw your note about this is haunted houses do this to you.
Yeah.
They'll take a room and they'll put a piece
or
of
carnivals. There's
Yeah.
that thing in the carnivals like that'll
the fun house.
Yeah.
They'll take a room and they'll I've seen a room in a haunted house where they put a piece of wood and they slowly made like an incline across, but you have to walk straight across it. So you're like going
It's just
so weird.
It's not good.
And it's not like you're walking up a hill. The hill is going left to right and you're walking, straight forward. So it's so weird, like walking at an angle, like you're tilted and everything like that. I hate it.
Yeah, indeed. So Roland picks himself up, shoulder still numb, but his arm did support him, so that was a good sign.
It's like a fucking hard hit.
Yeah.
To keep it numb. Like I said, I've hit my funny bone and everything like that on my elbow.
It's not very
and
funny,
it's like,
is it?
It is for everyone else. That's what I've always said. And it's like gone numb for just like a second. But I've never, ever hit my elbow hard enough even to have my arm go numb long enough for me to like get up off the ground.
Yeah. Did you ever get hit with a line drive? I think that's the most numb I've ever.
The only time I ever got hit with a line drive, I took it right in the chest. Just
yeah,
right
I took a line drive in the arm, and it was
Oh, yeah?
it was just above the elbow.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, my arm was like numb the rest of the day. Like,
okay.
I couldn't. Like,
Okay.
It just. But that was this is pee-wee ball. It was or not pee-wee, but like
Little League.
Little League, yeah. Pee-wee to me feels like way young.
Football.
Like no, it feels like that's like the kids playing t-ball. Like Pee-wee
No, it's
seems
t-ball.
really. I don't know. Yeah, that's what's
Pee-wee football
like
and Little League.
Little League, that's
Yeah.
a little because it's Little League, then it's the Babe Ruth League, is like closer to like high school age and stuff. Not that old, but yeah, took a line drive there, and yeah, my arm was numb the rest of the day. It was bad. It hurt. And then going on here, Jake was sitting up, picking up glass beads out of his lap with a dazed look on his face. Susanna was dabbing a cut on Eddie's face. Roland began to ask who was hurt, and when they heard an explosion above them that cut him off. The bang reminded him of big bangers that Cuthbert and Alan sometimes lit and tossed down drains or down toilets. And once Cuthbert shot one out of his sling. The explosion here was no prank. Susanna screamed out of surprise more than fear, and a hazy daylight shone through the Barony coach. It felt good, but the fresh air coming through the blown emergency exit was even better, sweet with a smell of rain. A ladder of twisted steel wire dropped down from the hatch. Eddie joked that first they throw the chandelier at you, then they show you the door. He suggests that they get out, and Susanna agrees. Roland asks if Jake is okay, and he says yes, and then asks if Oy is okay, and all we get is a Oy.
Yeah, it's my boy.
In return, Jake raises his wounded hand, and Roland asks if it is hurting again, and he says that it is, but he doesn't care. He is just happy to be alive. Roland says that life is good, but so is Aston, and there is some left. Jake corrected him with aspirin. Roland reflects that the pill is a thing of magic, but one that he would never be able to say properly. Susanna says 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Anacin, and Jake is confused. They don't have that ad in his time. She pulled Jake into her arms and kissed him between his eyes, on his nose, and then on his mouth. Jake laughed and then blushed.
Yeah.
So, so the attention paid to Roland's shoulder and arm made me a tiny bit nervous. We don't need a more damaged gunslinger than we already have.
Yeah, he's been through enough. Fuck.
Yeah, come on. Let's not hobble him anymore here.
Eddie for the damage to his like psyche and everything like that. Jake for the emotional damage. Susanna's had her physical damage, and now Roland's had all of the above.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Good Lord, man's lost fingers for crying out loud.
Exactly. Also, I just now realized that the hatch blue is the one that I eyeballed early on, thinking that it would be their key to the antenna.
Yeah.
So it actually did pay off. It's just not their way of beating Blaine. It was just their way of getting out.
Yeah.
So. Also, I love that Gilead had cherry bombs. That makes me happy.
I noticed that Roland says Cuthbert in a land, but not me, Cuthbert in a land. No, none of him including. Is he above those childish games?
Oh yeah.
Or do you think Roland is one of those? So do you think Roland's one of those kids who looks at those types of pranks and just like, no man, that's messed up. Someone has to clean that up. Like,
no, I just think it's below him. I don't think it's like a duty thing. I think it's more just like,
Did you ever know a kid like that was like, no, that's mean. Someone's going to have to clean that up.
Yeah.
And what did you do to those kids?
No comment. I listened to them, of course.
You listened.
I listened to them and heeded their warnings, of course. Go on. What's your note?
That was my note.
I see. I can just vividly imagine the dark barony coach with a little bit of natural light coming through. That just is a very stark image in my mind.
Like you've seen it where it's like a dark, cloudy day, and there's that one ray of sunbeam coming down
and again,
on one spot.
I think even the Enterprise in Generations, I think, is the same way. Once the crash is over, it like the bridge is dark. There's no more power, obviously, but the roof dome thing is broken, and there's light coming through. And so and I think that's brighter because it's a bigger thing. The barony coach would be smaller, so I could picture it even being darker. But it's a very stark image in my mind. Pretty cool.
And then even though Blaine has a super sophisticated machine where they do like the cycled air and everything like that, and it's supposed to be like fresh and everything, they still prefer the fresh air. Like it calls it out in the section, like the air smelled good. And I get that. Yeah, I really do. It's like getting off of a plane. You step out of not only the plane, but you step out of the airport as well. Oh yeah. And you're just like, oh, thank God.
Depends.
I flew into L.A.
When you go to
LAX
that's
one time.
That's not as bad. Go down to like Florida or Mexico, and you're going out to 50-60% humidity. It's like a punch.
I'll take it.
It's like a punch in the face,
man. Versus being inside of a plane.
And even there was a point when I had a really quick work trip to California. Beautiful down there. Or no, that wasn't that because it was cold here. There was one.
Was it when you went to Houston?
There was one place. No, there was one place I went, and then I came back. Nobody was coming back from Mexico, so I was like, just spent a week in the humid. And I hate humidity. I'm a desert rat.
You are.
But then I came back, and when I came back, it was like high humidity here. Walked outside the airport, and it was like a punch in the face. Like, what the hell?
It was Mexico.
This is Utah. There's not supposed to be humidity here.
Yeah. It wasn't like as high as Mexico or Florida would be, but it was still very, very high for what you were expecting.
Yeah, but as I'm walking out that door waiting for that sweet, sweet Utah desert, dryness.
But it's a dry heat.
Then you get punched in the face with humidity. I was not a happy tad.
Yeah, it was definitely a wet winter and spring here in Utah. So.
Yeah. So my next note, very interesting how much Roland marvels at something so mundane from our world. How easily we take some basics like medicine for granted. Basic medicines like that. Like aspirin. Like it's just something that's so mundane that like there's probably some of us that don't even have it in our house. And it's to Roland, it's magic. Yeah. So. Then my next note, Susanna kissing Jake reminds me of all the real estate we've covered from the end of the last book to the beginning of this one. She nor Eddie has had a chance to really come to terms with the fact that Jake is back and is okay. The fact that this emotion is only really aimed at him means that this is not just like Blaine didn't kill you, but rather, hey, Gasher didn't kill you emotion.
Yeah, they have like their little reunion quickly on the
but they don't have much time
on the platform.
Yeah,
but no, it's quickly turned to, hey, we got a riddle to solve or we're fucked.
Yeah, because she's not like, hey, we're all okay. She's not checking on Eddie and Roland as well. She's going straight to Jake, and that's what made me question, like, why?
There is a little passage where she's checking on a cut on Eddie's cheek
as
they're getting up.
Yeah.
But when they get up and she sees that everyone's is fine, like you said, she doesn't go for Eddie and be like, oh my God, we survived. Oh, Roland, we survived. No, it's straight to Jake and like, oh, come here, sugar.
Yeah. And again, because it's easy for us to forget that, again, pretty much since they approached the bridge, it's been nonstop from Oi attacking Jake to this point here.
I'll tell you right now, if Flanagan gives us a season break anywhere from the start of Blood to this moment, I might.
Oh, he has to.
I might.
He has to, dude.
I might be a little upset.
It has to be. And now the big games begin.
This is a season. You end the season with them walking up to the bridge. That's where you end the season. And the whole next season is Lud, kidnapping, Blaine crash. Then you end the season
Blaine
again.
It has to be a cliffhanger.
No,
it has to be
Tad. We're better.
Has to be.
We don't have to be this way.
It has to be a cliffhanger, sir.
Hashtag Tad is terrible for trying to do another one. Because the problem is that you know something's going to happen. It's going to be years before we get another season.
It's going to be a Stranger Things. It'll be 2 or 3 years before we get the next season.
There's another writer's strike, or there's another actor's strike, or something. You have cursed us. Shame on you. Hashtag Tad is terrible.
Has to cut off, and now the games begin. Then it cuts to credits. It has to be it. Has to.
No,
has to.
Are you gonna be mad if it isn't?
I wouldn't be mad, but I do think that's the way you have to do it, man. You have to. But let's jump on over to SbCh 6.
Baraki says book readers had to wait how many years? They can deal with a few months.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so much a part of the story at this point. And I know that King's like, oh, I'm so sorry. This is just where the story resolved itself. Like, I didn't really want to end it here. You've got to end it there, though. Like, that's the story. You've got to end it there.
We don't have to.
Opening episode of the next season starts off with what we're just covered.
We have the technology. We can be better.
No way. No,
So
no, sir.
In subchapter 6, Eddie says, first aid can wait. I'm talking about the aniston and everything like that, and the aspirin, and asks Jake if he can climb with his hurt hand up the ladder. Jake says he can, but he can't bring Oi, and he asks Roland if he would. Roland says yes and picks up Oi and tucks him in his shirt. Just like he did when he was following Jake and Gasher below the city. Oi peeks out at Jake with his bright gold-ringed eyes, and Roland says, up you go. Jake climbs and Roland follows close behind so Oi can stretch out his long neck and sniff at the boy's heel. Aw, good Roland, being thoughtful like that for Oi and Jake.
I don't know if he's doing it on purpose or if it's just how they're climbing
He
up.
follows him pretty close. If the bumbler's able to reach up and sniff. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I would not follow a kid that closely going up a ladder. They're clumsy little shits, so I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah. I will also point out as a pause before you finish off here.
Yeah.
Always warming up to everyone else. For a while there, Eddie or Jake was the only one that could touch him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know Roland picked him up in the city and stuff. But
Yeah, that was I think that was the dam.
That was
broke.
big circumstances though, and now we're back to kind of a little bit of a normal, and Roland's able to pick him up. So that's an interesting thing to note.
Mm-hmm. It is. Eddie asks Susanna if she needs a boost, and she responds with a flirty, and get your nasty hands all over my well-tuned fanny. Not likely, white boy. She takes off up the ladder using her strong, muscular arms and balancing on the stumps of her legs. She went fast, but not fast enough for Eddie to miss the chance to take a chance at pinching her where the pinching is good. She cries, "Oh, my purity," and then is gone, leaving Eddie alone. Warms my heart to see them joking and also getting out of Blaine.
Yeah, I think that's like exactly. I like that. But also, come on, Eddie. Does she need help? She's probably got stronger arms than anybody else in this.
She could arm wrestle all of them.
Yeah,
and waste them.
Like her whole life has been based around her arms for a while. So, yeah,
she would easily beat Jake and Eddie,
and Oi.
And Roland. I think Oi would give her trouble.
No.
Yeah.
So then my note, the relief after the battle is something else. I feel like even readers, we have been collectively holding our breath since we understood the game on Blaine, which is going back into the last book.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that any of us readers or the Kotet could breathe a sigh of relief here.
Yeah. Even after Eddie kills Blaine, we're still moving.
Yeah.
Crash.
Yeah.
This is the moment here. Eddie's by himself. This is the like you said, like the big sigh of relief and everything like that. And then I took this direct quote from the book for the rest of this subchapter because this is huge for us here. Only Eddie was left, standing by the foot of the ladder and looking around at the luxury coach, which he had believed might well be their Kotet's coffin. "You did it, kiddo," Henry said. "Made him set himself on fire. I knew you could. Fucking A. Remember when I said to those skag bags behind Dolly's, Jimmy Polio and those guys, and how they laughed? But you did it. Sent him home with a fucking rupture. Well, it worked anyway," Eddie thought, and touched the butt of Roland's gun without even being aware of it. Well, enough for us to walk away one more time. He climbed 2 rungs and then looked back down. The barony coach already felt dead. Long dead, in fact. Just another artifact of a world that had moved on. "Adios, Blaine," Eddie said. "So long, partner." And then he followed his friends out through the emergency exit in the roof. And my note here is just, that's a nice little closure moment with Eddie and Henry here. Would it be great to see on film? Just like the mirage of Eddie, would you do that? Or would you just have it all be in his head?
I would say it depends on how you've done the rest of it up to this point. Like, are we
Sure.
hearing Court and Henry in their heads? Because I think you probably want to do that.
Sure.
And I think if that in that case, then you just hear it.
Okay. I was just wondering if this was like a Return of the Jedi, like the Ewok celebration scene where they manifest even though they're there. We haven't seen them really that much, but we've seen Obi-Wan, so that's what you're saying is keep the continuity there?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
gotcha.
what I would think.
Yeah.
And then Carol says Jake is still relatively a baby and needs attention. She realizes that. Susanna does, which is a good call.
Oh, yeah.
And then Brocky says, it's been nonstop action since Gasher with the grenade on the bridge, right? Yeah.
Even a little bit before that, because you have Oi falling and Jake saving him and everything like that.
Yeah.
That they have to contest
And the
with.
vicious attack.
So stop it.
The vicious attack on the bridge.
No.
So
Stop it.
pretty much since the vicious attack on the
Stop
bridge,
it.
it's been nonstop action.
Since Oi fell and Jake saved him.
I'm surprised Oi didn't attack Roland there.
Oh, stop it.
I guess he only attacks children. So.
I hate you.
Oh. So then, let's see. My last note here, a huge moment for Eddie. I remember wondering if the monkey of Henry and self-doubt that came from Henry would finally be off Eddie's back. His self-doubt has nearly killed them all, almost as much as his drug use did for him and Roland early on. So I'm hoping at this point, as I'm reading the first time, that this is his huge moment to step forward with growth and kind of get past this whole self-doubt shit. Because I mean, the key stuff, like his self-doubt damn near crippled him to not completing that.
Yeah.
Because he was so worried about doing it wrong. And again, that comes from the abuse and the trauma of his brother. But it's like, I remember just hoping this is like that turning of the corner for him.
Yeah.
Where it's like, dude, you don't have to fucking doubt yourself. Like, just be a gunslinger.
Yeah, you are a gunslinger. Don't doubt yourself.
Yeah.
You are a gunslinger. Recognize it. And I think that the line when he's killing Blaine comes to mind, and I read it twice, is that, I am a gunslinger. I am one of Roland's tribe. I may be damned to the darkest pit of hell, but this is what I am.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's what you're talking about, is hopefully that sticks in his mind going forward.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that moves us over to Chapter 4. So jumping over the full chapters, the Chapter 4 is titled Topeka. And then we start with subchapter 1 here. So Jake stood on the tilted roof of Blaine and looked southeast along the path of the beam, the wind blowing his hair that was long and non-piperish, and his eyes were wide with surprise. He did not know what to expect, maybe a smaller version of Ludd. What he did not expect was a green road sign with a blue shield mounted on it. And I actually have a slide for that. There's a very, very, very crude drawing in the book.
Yeah.
But I figured why not grab a real one here. And it is, for anyone listening, it's an Interstate 70 sign. I think all of us have seen Interstate. Well, everyone in America has seen an Interstate sign.
If you haven't, Google it.
Yeah, if you haven't Google it, it's a little bit better than the crude drawing in the book itself. So then Roland came up through the hatch and put Oi down on the roof. The front of the train's bullet shape was broken by crumpled metal and gashes that came within a few yards of where the gunslingers now stood. The poles that Blaine hit were indeed yellow and black, as imagined earlier on, and looked like football goalposts to the gunslingers from New York. Susanna says that they were lucky if they had been going any faster, and Eddie cuts her off by saying "caw," and Roland agrees. I think Eddie's saying it a little bit jokingly, and Roland, of course, can't see a joke and just takes it at face value, and he's like, "Indeed, caw."
Yeah.
Which I love. That's like the perfect, like, humorous way to play it too, where it's just like Eddie's kind of being cheeky.
Yes.
And he's just like, "Yep, of course."
Completely
over his hatless head.
Metaphor wouldn't go over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it.
And then so Jake turns back to the sign, and he was convinced that it would be gone or would have changed, and said something like Midworld Toll Road or something like that. He asked the Deans if they saw it. They followed his pointing finger, and the silence was just long enough for Jake to think that he was hallucinating it. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Then Eddie,
this kid doesn't have enough to question his sanity already throughout these books.
Yeah. Then Eddie asked if they were back home, and if they were, where were all the people? And if this was their Topeka, how could Blaine be going there without any of them seeing it on 60 Minutes? Susanna asks what that is, and he says it's a TV show with old white guys in ties. Susanna says this is Kansas, right? They're Kansas, and she guesses, and she points to another sign. Let me jump on over to that one. And it is a Kansas Turnpike sign. So, KTA, Kansas Turnpike Association. I don't know.
Transit Authority.
I guess that makes sense.
UTA is Utah Transit Authority, Kansas Transit Authority.
Yeah, I guess that could be.
Yeah.
Then let's see. When we were, or my note here, when we were seeing Topeka on the route maps, did you imagine this train would actually be taking us to our Topeka? Or did you just think it was like a crossover where it's like, oh, he's got a town in his world named Topeka as well?
I thought maybe that.
Because that's what I thought. Like, I had no inclinations that we'd be coming through and seeing both a United States interstate sign and a Kansas Turnpike. That is not at all. Like, I was kind of
floored.
Yeah, reeling. This was.
Yeah, you're coming off of this high of Eddie killing Blaine and them surviving the crash and everything like that, and you're like, oh, wait, what? They're in our world?
And
like,
also,
kind of
so, again, I love, like, world building stuff. What does this mean for Blaine in his day? Was he taking people from Ludd to Topeka?
The route map
and-
said Topeka, like it was
so
a
is he-
destination,
Is he like
right?
crossing? Like, because we've seen doors.
Yeah.
But Roland mentioned that, like, hey, these doors are unique. He's already told the quartet that this isn't a normal thing. This is like the first times I've seen doors like this. And
Yeah.
I've been here around a long time. So now we have a train though that seemingly has taken us into another reality. Like that just like. How do you like it was like the rich folks riding this barony coach that we were just in, where they like ones were like, yes, let's go to Topeka today. And it's just like my brain, like I'm feeling like Blaine now. It just doesn't compute. It's like, how does this?
If
Like,
you start singing a song in another language, Tab, we're gonna have an issue.
I want to know more. I know we won't, but
Yeah.
this is weird. This is a crazy.
This is like, wait, what?
Yeah, this is very disorienting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a note here. I should have put it before yours. Eddie cutting her off before she goes too far down that dark path is smart. Sometimes you got to stop people from dwelling on the really bad that could have happened.
Yeah.
I know you said that you think that he's just kind of kidding with like the call thing, but I also think that might have been a joke. Eddie does that to distract. I do the same thing. It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
You have someone that's like, oh my God, we could have all died. You're just like, nope.
Yeah.
Listen, we're not going to talk about that because if you start going there, things are going to get dark and we don't need that right now.
Yeah.
And so that's what I kind of interpreted. That's what Eddie's doing is he's just cutting her off. And then, Roland still does the, yes, caw.
Yeah, of course. It is. Yeah, completely over his head,
Yeah.
indeed. Let's see. So then my last note here on this for this bite that we just took. Sure, there were doors, but this would be a wild moment for a TV show. Especially for a non-reader. After this huge showdown with the homicidal train going over the double the speed of an airplane, then you land in Kansas City, USA. Like,
Yeah.
just yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, again, for non-readers, this is going to be a moment.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be like, again, the doors are one thing, but if Flanagan does it properly, where it's like Roland, like again, speaks through the idea of like, hey, these are really rare. I've seen 3 in my life, and these are the 3 you guys all just saw.
4. 4. Pulling Eddie through was Jake through was a 4th door.
Before that,
Yeah.
because they were talking after the beach at one point. They were talking early on in book
trying
3
to get back to their world.
about something about getting back to their world and
Yeah.
doors. And he's like, "You guys are really over. Like, you guys think that these doors are everywhere? Like, no, I've seen 3 of them. Like, this isn't like
Yeah.
they're not just all over the fucking place. Like,
And then they find one to pull Jetty through. It's like,
well, they create one.
that's true. They do.
They create one, so it's not even a door that's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just that's one thing. But the idea of taking a train and now suddenly ending up in a different, essentially our world, that's going to be something where people are going to be losing their minds that are watching that haven't read. So that's pretty cool. They ask if there's a Kansas in Roland's world, and he says no. They are well beyond the boundaries of his world, and the world that he knows. And then he says he was most of the way beyond that boundary before he met any of them. Roland cocks his head as if he is listening to something on the air, and he looks, and the look on his face is something that Jake does not like. Eddie starts to joke about wacky geography in Midworld, where you start in New York, travel southeast to Kansas, and then continue on the beam to the Dark Tower, which is the middle of everything. First fighting giant lobsters, then fighting psychotic trains, and then Roland broke in asking if any of them heard anything. Just to pause there, just think of that geography wise. Southeast. If you're going southeast in New York, you're going into the ocean.
That's the Atlantic.
So go that direction, but then you're in Kansas, like.
Does not compute.
It just does not work. That for our world, it doesn't work.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know geography of the United States, New York is on the east coast over if you
Up
cross
by Maine.
By Maine, if you cross the Atlantic, going east, you're going towards Europe. Kansas is west and a little bit south of New York. It is in the dead center of the United States.
Yeah.
So when you hear about like the Great Plains, like back in the olden days and everything like that, the Old West and everything, the Great Plains, think of Kansas. You know, that's where Wyatt Earp was in Dodge City, Kansas. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Moving on, I just want to pause and point that out because that did make my brain hurt a little bit. Jake heard the trees rustling in the wind and Oi's claws clicking on the metal of Blaine's roof. As they all listened, it seems they do hear something after all. Even Oi, who was whining far down in his throat. Jake gets goosebumps. The noise was faint, but it was the auditory version of biting a lemon. He heard something like it before in Central Park when he was younger, a crazy guy who called himself a musician that played workshop tools. He signed his sign said, "World's greatest saw player." Sounds Hawaiian, doesn't it? Please contribute to my welfare. This sound is not exactly like the saw being played like let's see. This sound was not exactly like his saw being played like a cello, but it was close. The saw had been a wavery, trembly, metallic sound that made you feel like your sinuses are filling up. And I may actually have.
That's a theremin.
No, this is a saw.
Oh, is it really? Sounds like a theremin, like the Star Trek theme.
No,
the original.
it's I pulled that
cool.
I pulled that from Home Improvement. There's a point when they
really?
on Tool Time they have a lady that plays a saw. So I pulled the sound bite from that. So that's
Nice.
what a saw sounds like, because that's my context. I watched that as a kid, so like I had that in my head pretty much from the first second of reading this.
Sounds
so.
Hawaiian, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does sound Hawaiian indeed. So a good reminder that Roland was near the end of his world at the beginning of his story. Remember, he had been asking around about what was beyond the desert.
Yeah.
So we can't take for granted that Roland even has known what's been going on this whole story. He's been outside of his realm of comfort. So
exactly.
It's easy to forget that. I think I tend to forget that, but especially by the time we get into here, like I think I just assume that Roland's seen everything.
Yeah.
No, he's well beyond what he's seen.
Also, Roland having better eyesight is well documented. We've had several instances of that, but better hearing as well. Hearing it even before Oi does. So if we're assuming Oi has pretty keen hearing, being an animal, cross between a badger and a dog kind of thing, might have pretty good hearing. But have we ever seen an example of this before where Roland has like Superman hearing?
Not that I can think of. No,
I can't think of one either. So that's just another thing to add to his resume.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see, and then my next thing here for Jake. First, Jake thinks he's imagining things with the sign. Then Roland has his turn with it with the sound and asks if they hear what he's hearing. It just feels like they're both. It's just following along. First, Jake thinks he's imagining a sign. Now Roland thinks he's imagining a sound, but it's not. So kind of a funny little parallel there. Jake could not tell if it was coming from the front of them or not. It seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere. And it was so low, he was tempted to think it was just his imagination. Eddie cried out to watch out and asked for help because he thinks Roland is going to faint. Jake turned and saw Roland face was very pale and his eyes were blank, and one corner of his mouth was twitching as if a fish hook were in it. That's a fun thought. Roland then started to talk, saying Jonas and Reynolds and DePape, the big coffin hunters, and her, the Coos. They were the ones who, and then he trails off. Then he tottered, and on his face was the greatest look of misery that Jake had ever seen. "Oh, Susan," he said. "Oh, my dear." So, and that is the end of the subchapter. So my note, Roland had been far less than 100%, a number of times before this, but this is the first time that it seems to be for no reason.
Yeah, this just came out of the blue.
Lobstrosity poisoning, then the mind splitting. Like every other time we've had a very distinct idea of like what's wrong with him. This is new for us as readers, where we're like, what's going on here? Like, why is he suddenly like, I don't know. I remember being a little bit worried where I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
This isn't good.
Absolutely. My note goes along with that. It says, very scary to have Roland have a fainting spell the minute he gets back to our world. If it is our world. I mean, yes, we saw Kansas. We saw the interstate
we're
sign.
assuming.
We're assuming right now, but, assuming that it is. He's been through so much physical pain and even mental, but this seems to be pure emotional damage here. This is scary.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that, like, we didn't know Roland even had a side like this, like the, "Oh, my dear," that kind of thing. Like, that's not something I would have ever expected Roland to say,
Yeah, and what we were just mentioning too is with kind of what Brocky mentioned in the chat. Not really sure what reality we're on here. I think there's a lot of assumptions, for sure, in terms of where we're actually at. And then my last note here, also interesting to note, in the last book we saw Roland in a pretty bad way, but Jake did not see that.
Yeah.
When the mind splitting was happening, Jake was on the other side. So because he was still in our world. So caging this line in the experience of Jake leaves that mind splitting out of the competition. So this isn't to say that this is the worst we've even seen Roland, because I do think the mind splitting was probably the worst. I mean, he was like talking about, removing his weapons and potentially considering suicide even. So I think that's about as low as Roland could get, but Jake maybe gracefully wasn't there. He was going through it himself, I suppose, so maybe it isn't whatever. But
Yeah.
I think that would be something hard for Jake to see Roland in that low of a position.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, but I think that's about where we're going to run out of time
good.
here.
I was going to ask you if we could stop there. I do have a few spoiler things and a story for all of us.
Okay, yeah. So that puts us at. We're going to start back up at subchapter 2
Yes.
next time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had planned a little bit more, but one, we're still getting the hang of this book in terms
Yeah.
of like the percentages. But two, this is obviously a big moment, if
Yeah.
not one of the biggest moments, certainly that we've ever covered up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, figured it might go long. So that's
Wanted
that's
to
fine.
do it justice.
Yeah. So yeah, let's jump on over to.
Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead.
I like it.
All right, so
And
now
then
we
you gotta
are.
make the screen red, right?
Yeah, we are over
There
in
we
the
go. Okay,
spoiler
updated.
section now. So if you are
Perfect.
listening, that was your warning. If you've not finished the primary books of the Dark Tower series, time to cry off. If you want to come back to this later after you finish the series, you can. But I would not recommend listening any further.
Yeah. So this is a perfect time for us to be covering this part since you're reading The Stand right now.
Indeed.
Of course, we didn't get to the cliffhanger part that you're seeming to aim for with these book clubs. Cliffhanger after cliffhanger recently. Eddie getting ready to stand
I'm
up
just-
to Blaine. And
I'm just going
now
percentages.
You tried to get us to where they find the paper and it says Captain Trips, and that's where you were going to cut us off?
That's where the percentage was. But you know, the Blaine killing took a little bit longer than we.
We'll have to
suspected.
see. We'll have to see next time how.
I mean, now we're leaving on
how
a
it goes.
cliffhanger too. Roland fainting.
Yeah, Roland fainting.
And
We're
we have
still
no
on a
idea
cliffhanger.
why.
Even an impromptu ending by you is still a cliffhanger. Jeez, Tad, what is this?
What are you making me out to be? Some mustache twirling villain?
I mean, if the shoe fits, if the mustache curls. So the next question I have is: do we ever see Henry again? I honestly don't think that we do, but I can't remember. Anyone in the chat, do you remember if we see Henry again in this series? I don't know if we do.
Yeah, I don't know.
There might be like a mention of him, but like an actual like manifestation,
Like the voices?
the voices and stuff like that.
Well, probably not in this book,
Not in this book.
since we don't have much more of Eddie, Susanna,
Yeah.
and Jake the rest of this book.
Yeah.
But let me just search it out and see what Henry comes up with here. Let's see. There's Eddie mentioning him. He refers to Henry a lot that I'm seeing. But I'm not seeing. No, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I don't see
So
any
that's
more
it.
in this
So
book.
it is like a closure moment for him, like you were talking about.
But obviously, there's other books too. We'll
Yeah.
have to look into that further, maybe, and come back to that in the round table, maybe, because there's
Sure.
a little bit of homework in that one, maybe.
Let me write that down.
Unless
real
anyone in the
fast.
chat remembers any other times that we get the internal monologue Henry in the final books after the accident. Henry, I'm just gonna search. But yeah, what do you got next?
So the next note is a spoiler discussion. I'm going to save that because we didn't get to that part.
Okay.
That's in the next couple subchapters that we're saving for next time now. And so that moves us to I got a story for you, Tad.
Okay.
And I couldn't.
also think I may have found one here.
Okay.
Let's see. Only Henry is smiling instead of scowling and looking straight, holding onto the one hand and giving Eddie what looks like a thumbs up. Go on. Let's see. Then Henry Dean's voice. Go on, Eddie. Show him what you're made of. Didn't I tell those other guys? So is this just repeating chapter 12 into the next books? I don't know what.
Wolves of the Kala?
Yeah, into Wolves of the Kala. So I don't know, but yeah, sorry, but yeah, go on with your story. I was just searching through my Kindle to see if there's anything else. That one looked like it, but that looks like it's just repeating what we already heard, maybe.
The story of how he gets set the devil on fire.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it looked like to me. So I'll have to do further research into it for sure.
I got it written down. I'll send it to you, reminding you and everything.
Okay.
Okay. We have to have a talk, Ted.
About
You and your evilness and your plans and how they always come to fruition of my ruin.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you even meant this one. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't think Tad meant to do this to me.
Okay. I did change the slide, by the way.
Okay. It's still spoiler.
No, I know. I'm
Okay.
just.
Okay. You fucking motherfucker. How the fuck did you know? Oh, I put Oi Story. Okay. Okay, so you're not just psychic. Okay. God, that scared me for a second. So yeah, I literally put this in the notes as saying Oi Story. Okay. So this picture here is the AI animated Oi that we covered last roundtable 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago.
Everyone seemed to really enjoy it, by the way.
Everyone seemed to enjoy it. I loved it. My wife loved it. My daughter loves it.
Yeah.
Okay. I put it as my wallpaper on the background of my computers, and I sent a picture in the Discord for our Patreons, the Gunslingers, to see that. My daughter has been obsessed with it. I also had a week's vacation last week over the 4th of July. I took a couple extra days off going with the company given holiday days. And so I spent a lot of time on my computer, and my daughter obviously is on summer vacation out of school, and she saw it, and she's like, what is that? It's so cute. So I started telling her about Oi, and I told her, and she's like, oh, it's Oi? And I'm like, yeah. So, and I explained how he mimics speech. So, like, if he was saying your name, you know, it would only be, like, the last part of it. Like, if he was saying my name, it, you know, Peter, Eater. I'm like, that's how he talks, and he always is like, rough, you know, kind of thing. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So now I turn on my computer, and she just happens to be walking past with, like, her tablet and her headphones in and everything like that. And she just glances up, and she sees him, and she just goes, oi, in her cute little 10-year-old's voice and everything like that, right? So I'm prepping today, and it's the part where they're climbing the ladder. I had her read that. And she's like, oh, he's so cute. He's got a long neck, and he's stretching out like that. And, oh, it's so cute and everything. And then she asked me the question that will haunt me probably for the rest of my days. When should I read this, Dad?
Yes, right now.
No. Dude, could you imagine what the death of Oi would do to my sweet little... You know her. You know what that would do to her, sir?
What it did to all of us. I mean,
It's true, yeah.
come on now.
Oh.
There was a Reddit post not too long ago where somebody said, like, what's the saddest things that King's ever done to you?
And we put that in the Discord and it discussed it and everything.
Yeah, and I will say there was a number.
A great number.
A great number of Oi references.
Yeah.
So, well, to be continued on that, huh?
I had to tell you because I knew. First off, I knew you would fucking laugh. I knew you would because you're evil. You are evil. Taking pleasure in the pain of my daughter.
Hey, he dies a hero, though.
He does, but still, he dies in a
Yeah.
horrible fashion too.
Yeah,
so.
pretty bad.
Yeah, she's like, when should I read this? And I think my wife kind of has. She knows enough about the series. She knows, like, characters die. She knows that Eddie dies, even though she's never read it. She's heard me and you talk about it enough. She's watched a few episodes of Dark Tower Palaver, the round tables and stuff like that. She knows.
Yeah.
And she never has any plans of reading them ever.
Yeah.
And I swear I saw her head snap up. the oh shit, like, what's he gonna say? You know, like, is he just gonna tell her flat
What
out
did
right
you
now?
say?
And I said, when you're older.
That is a good.
She is not old enough to read the Dark Tower. No.
I mean, that is a question to ask, though. Is when is a kid old enough to read a Stephen King or a Dark Tower book?
Stephen King's a different topic than a Dark Tower. That's a big, hefty thing to throw at a 10-year-old.
Yeah, it's true. But no, that wraps it for this episode, though. We will be back in a fortnight for, like I said, or at the beginning of the episode, we have a special episode. We're going to have a guest host with us as we're going to be talking about our top 10 Dark Tower characters. So get those lists in. I actually did see an email come through while we were recording, as a matter of fact. I got a little pop-up. So I know at least one person emailed while we were recording this episode. But get your top 10 Dark Tower character lists sent in if you want to be part of the conversation for that. We have a lot of good fun stuff to talk about.
The place to send it is our email, darktowerpalaver@gmail.com, or the new one, show@darktowerpalaver.com. I just want to throw those in right there when you're talking about it. That's where you send it.
Yes, indeed. So we, let's go ahead and hit my stuff too. If you want to subscribe to us on any podcasting service, you can find us pretty much anywhere. You can stream us on Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, or Audible. If you want to join us for the live streams, do that over here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. Find the show notes and the hub for all things Dark Tower Palaver over at darktowerpalaver.com. If you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. And then, like I said, we're back in a fortnight for Roundtable, whatever, 139 maybe? maybe, just going by pure memory, which is a dangerous thing when it comes to me. But yeah,
according to the YouTube Dark Tower Palaver Roundtable 139 on July 29th.
Yep, because this is one of our 2 months of the year that we have 3 episodes is July, so we will be back in a fortnight, which is technically still July. And then I'll also throw a link in the chat if you want to join us on Geekery Abides here in about 15 minutes.
Yep.
We will be talking the Terminator trilogy, the first three
first 3
movies
films
of the Terminator franchise. So we will we'll be back in a fortnight. We will sign off as we always do by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
All right, everyone in the chat, thank you all for joining us. Good to have all this conversating. It's always fun on the book clubs, and this is good
and
stuff.
Thanks for the help, too. I know there was
Yeah.
a couple times Baraki helped us at least once, I know, and then there was others that helped us in the chat answer questions or correcting us when we get things wrong. So thank you for that.
It's been, I think the last time I read Lord of the Rings, or The Hobbit,
Yes.
I was in like high school,
I don't think I've ever read The Hobbit.
Really?
Lord of the Rings, yes, but The Hobbit,
I
no.
actually read it on a plane to Vegas.
Did you really?
I read most of it on the plane, and then like the last little bit I had to, finish up because it's a short book. It's a short book, and it's a short flight.
The plane doesn't even get up to like cruising speed. It just like goes up and comes down.
Goes up and down. It's like a triangle. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. It's great to have you as part of the show here on the chat. And like I said, if you want to join us for Geekery Abides, we'll be back in 15 minutes for that. See you guys then.
Bye, everyone.